Yes, good morning and welcome in to Fantasy and Frame Sunday pregame show. It is week 2, baby. Wow, what a week 1 we had, but we're ready to go for week 2. I am your host, Gator J. You can find me at FantasyJ77 over there on Twitter. Guys, let's go. It is going to be a hell of a week 2. We have our CEO and founder of Fantasy and Frames back with us in the house. It's great to have you back, sir, Mr. Jorge Edwards.
I'm happy to be here. If I could take a little minute here, for those of you who championed like me to stay up until 2:30 in the morning watching Colorado State versus Colorado, we're on the same page right now. We need some coffee, but it doesn't matter because it's week 2. We cannot wait to get to it.
Yes, absolutely. Good morning, Melissa is already in the chat, popping off right already. Let's go. We have my co-host from Mocking After Dark, Mr. Kyle Ziegler. How are you doing, sir?
I am doing great. Ready to roll out week 2. Let's go.
Absolutely. And last but not least today, we have one of the newest Fantasy and Frames newcomers. The fantasy homeboy, Mr. Preston Evans, is joining us. How are you doing this morning, sir? You ready for week 2?
Oh, yeah. Pumped and ready to go. How y'all doing, fellas?
Good. We are so happy to have you on here. We've seen one of your videos come out already that was really, really good. Melissa already popping with questions right here. Is Christian Watson in? Let's take a quick look at Christian Watson's status for the Green Bay game, Atlanta game.
Still questionable, but everything seems to be going. Both he and Aaron Jones are heading towards out, but it just has not been declared yet.
Okay. There is your question there. Yes. Ooh.
Yeah, I got it. On the board. I got it.
All right, you got it. All right, cool. Let's see where are we going this morning. We may have a few others from the Fantasy and Frames family joining us throughout the show. If you're over on Twitter or on Facebook, you want to interact with us, please head over to the YouTube channel, jump into the chat. We'd love to help you with all your fantasy football questions, start sits, injuries. We might even get a little bit of DFS from Kyle today. I mean, Kyle put out that DFS video for last Monday. I'm hoping he's going to do it again for this coming Monday, at least for the Monday. Well, we got 2 games on Monday, so you may have a combo there. So we might get Kyle to do a DFS shout out right there. To what did Chig or McBride in Scott Fishbowl, Kyle?
Chig for Scott Fishbowl.
There goes your fantasy. There goes your Titans fandom right off the bat.
Yeah, I'm showing my true colors right now.
Testing the loyalties there.
I like
Ertz got some targets last week, so he's kind of firmly back in that spot. And given the pass-heavy nature this Chargers offense should have against Tennessee, Titans are going to have to throw it back. And Chig.
They are going to have to throw the football. So Chig.
Yeah, are you on that same thought there, Preston? It's going to be Chig.
Oh yeah, definitely Chig.
Let's recap real quick the Thursday night game with as Jorge was saying, what a great college football evening it was yesterday. It wasn't so great for the early games with some of the high ranking teams, but the ending was phenomenal. Of course, with my Gators and then Colorado. Jorge staying up so late, but we also had a great NFL game on Thursday. Overall, I guess, with the Vikings and Eagles. Preston, what were your thoughts after the Vikings Eagles game as far as fantasy goes?
I think the Eagles definitely have to tweak a few things on their offense. But I love the running game. I loved it. They need to, if Swift didn't make a bold statement for himself, then I don't know what game that the coaching staff was watching.
Yeah, 170 yards on the ground for DeAndre Swift was absolutely wonderful.
It should at least be split between him and Gainwell. I understand they like Gainwell, but you can't deny Swift what he was out there doing.
Yeah, I agree. Kyle, what was your thoughts on the Vikings side?
Alexander Madison struggling again for the Vikings, not getting much there at the running back spot for the Vikings. Kirk Cousins, primetime, looked good to me. Justin Jefferson, lots of targets heading his way, lots of catches. They looked good. They battled back there. Just fell a little bit short, but they're coming around. They got a tough, brutal schedule coming up, though. But the Vikings showed me a little something there. Primetime Kirk, everybody gets on him, but he looked pretty good to me in primetime.
Yeah. Wednesday night, the Fourth and Frames guys, they did a segment, with the, ringing the bells, on some of these players. And question in the chat, is it time to set an alarm for Madison, or are things going to get better, Jorge?
I believe the segment you're talking about, is it bussin', discussin', or mid in terms of player options? Let's get our Gen Z slang up to code there, Gator. It is. I think it's time to set the alarm. The next couple weeks, or next 3 weeks, I think the Vikings have difficult matchups, which doesn't bode well for Madison, and the offense as a whole. Obviously, Justin Jefferson's going to get his. Hawkinson's going to get his. Kirk Cousins will get his points. Whether or not that translates into the actual team winning, on the football field is a different story. But Madison, what set this offense apart last year when O'Connell came on board, even though Dalvin Cook was still there, you saw a reduction in the rushing attempts with Dalvin Cook. You're seeing what made him so special is that he was super efficient with limited touches. You can't just do the same thing with Alexander Madison. You have to give him volume, which that just does not seem to be the case in Minnesota. The past 2 seasons with their running backs, and it's not looking great.
Yeah, and Equinox wants to know, he wants to trade him, but he doesn't know, if he should, number one. But let me ask it this way. What can you get for him right now? I mean, he's done absolutely nothing on the field. Is he even worth trading, or is he... Good morning, Mr. Bob Harris.
Mr. Bob Harris. What's up, sir?
Is he even worth trying to trade at this point, or is he just somebody you kind of either got to hold on to?
Oh, you're definitely holding, and you're waiting for that one game where he goes off, and you look for the running back. You go to the Aaron Jones manager, or you go to any other situation that has a murky backfield. You go to the Los Angeles Rams manager who has Cam Akers or Kyron Williams. You go to any situation, you go like, hey, look what I got, and you see what you can get at wide receiver or tight end or whatnot.
All right. Well, that is that is our well, let me ask you this, Ori, because we are known for our IDP stuff. Yeah. Thursday night was again, high scoring for the most part. It was a lot higher scoring than I thought it was going to be. But tell me, on the IDP side of the ball, or on the IDP side of fantasy, for both of these teams, who stood out and who lacked the skills that needed to be for Thursday night? Like we talked about, Kirk Cousins not being primetime Kirk. Who wasn't primetime on the IDP side, and who was?
Right. So, one of the things Nate and I really like to talk about for Philadelphia is that when it comes to the defensive line / edge rushers, they're so deep at these positions that you never know who's going to be on a roll. To end last season, Hassan Reddick just was on a tear. The first couple weeks just hasn't been there. On the flip side, Josh Sweat had a great game. He had a great matchup against his offensive tackle who had a low win percentage. We look at Nakobe Dean going on IR. We have the rotation of linebackers there. But for me, the players that really stood out were Danielle Hunter, tried and true, just consistent as hell for the Minnesota Vikings defensive end. When he's healthy, this guy is one of the best edge rushers in all of the NFL. Another thing for IDP purposes, Ivan Pace, rookie linebacker out of the University of Cincinnati, has his snaps have been going up, his production has been going up. You love to see it. But the thing that really surprises me is the changing of the guard at the defensive back position. Harrison Smith has been one of the top defensive backs in all of fantasy football for years. Definitely an older player. You're starting to see the influx of the younger players. And Cameron Bynum, the past couple weeks has just been playing lights out, has been giving you DB1 production. And don't sleep on Josh Metellus. They brought him back with a small contract in the offseason. He's not putting up the numbers that Bynum is per se, but he's not far behind. And if you're in a deep IDP league, both of these guys should be rostered, one started in Bynum. Can't ignore it anymore, and Metellus on the bench just in case. You're muted. Yep, you're still muted, Gator. And we got a thing in the chat here.
Sorry about that. I was reading Ian Rappaport just came across for one of the 1 o'clock games. The Bills Raiders. Damar Hamlin is inactive for today for IDP purposes. Josh Kelly feeling like a trap play this week going against the Titans.
He is.
What do you think?
Well, Jamal Williams, who was supposed to be the guy last week, we given the matchup, given the volume, no touch. He got 0 touchdowns and 2.5 yards per carry. That doesn't really bode well for the running game here. The Josh Kelly is not Austin Eckler. You know what I mean?
Well, no, but Joshua Kelly did get 16 carries, 91 yards, and a TD last week
versus a sieve of a defensive, situation there in Miami. I don't know. I guess I don't know. Maybe Preston, maybe you have a different take on it. I'll skip the Titans fan bias over here with Kyle.
Yes, please.
But Preston, what do you think about Josh Kelly this week versus the Tennessee Titans?
Miami's defense is not that serious anyway. So I don't. Joshua Kelly might be okay, but I think about Dotson coming in and taking and having a few touches. Dotson showed out in preseason, and I think it might be more of a split between those two. But either way, the Titans' run defense, that's one thing they can hang their hat on is their run defense. So I don't see any one of those backs doing particularly good or lights out, but you might see some flashes out of Dotson.
Yeah, like, for example, I have Eckler in a lot of places, and I managed to get, Kelly off of waivers. I'm starting him out of necessity. I'm not starting it because I'm expecting him to be Austin Eckler or even what Josh Kelly was last. I just think it's just a bad matchup this week, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Okay, if you look at the matchup, I can agree. But, I mean, when you look at the splits between Austin Eckler had 16 carries, so did Joshua Kelly. So I do think, just my personal opinion, I think Joshua Kelly is going to be the lead back out of that backfield. And maybe Dotson does get some run just to give him a break, but I don't think it's going to be a 50-50 split like it was last week with Eckler and Kelly. All right, Kyle, what is your take on this? And I'll bring you in just because it's talking about your fandom here.
Well, I will say that Josh Kelly will be a volume play for Jorge. He's going to play him because he needs him. And that's kind of where you're at with Josh Kelly. You picked him up because you probably need him. If you don't need him and you just picked him up for depth, great. Don't start him against a very good run defense with the Tennessee Titans. But it is a volume play, so I support it.
Yeah, I mean, he's rostered in sleeper leagues. He's now rostered in 76% of leagues, which I think that number has jumped up a ton. Got a tough one. Bobby Trees or Gabe Davis, full PPR. Kyle.
Yeah, that is a tough one. But I'll go with Gabe Davis, just better offense all around.
Do you think that Bills offense is going to come back to life this week against the Raiders?
They should. They should. They got they're going up against a softer defense there. So, yeah, I think Gabe Davis is good for a long touchdown. Maybe he'll get one for you. I like it better than old Bobby Trees.
Yeah, hey, be nice. Look, I actually think it's for the PPR nature of it. I think it is Bobby Trees you roll with, just because you look at the report that Schefter came out with today. Laremy Tunsil looks like he's going to be out. That's 4 of the starting offensive linemen being out this week against the Indianapolis Colts. He's going to need to get the ball out fast. Who better than a veteran wide receiver who knows how to get open, who knows how to be a quarterback's best friend, to dump the ball off too quickly, because CJ Stroud is going to be under pressure. Versus Gabe Davis, I feel like, yes, it is the better offense, but he's kind of like that boomer bust deep ball guy. He's not known for somebody who's going to be peppered with targets and, as Hank Stram used to say, matriculate the ball down the field. That's not Gabe Davis. You know what I mean?
Preston?
Yeah, I'm with Bobby Trees. I like Bobby Trees in this offense.
I think
CJ Stroud showed that he loves his veteran presence in Bobby Trees, and Bobby Trees gets open.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's Bobby Trees here. Just for the simple fact of the matchup. CJ Stroud did like him. I mean, I think it was 6 of 10 last week for Bobby Trees. The yardage wasn't there, but the opportunity and the share was the target share was there for him with CJ Stroud. So
I'll see you guys in the chat for that game. I'll see you guys in the chat.
Yeah, crispy.
I saw this and I do like that Chris brought this up. Kelly averaging 3 games with Eckler out, 8 carries, 18 yards, 2 receptions, 11 yards, 3.9 fantasy points.
I will say this to Chris though. That's with, I believe, Justin Jackson. So Jackson probably taking up a little bit of the RB2 role there. So is Kelly given a full complement of touches like Kyle you were alluding to in terms of the passing or the rushing volume he should get today? So different situation, but I understand where Chris is coming from.
Yes.
See, the problem I have with Kelly is they felt the need to go out here and try to draft Isaiah Spiller. That's the whole problem I have with Kelly. They went out here. They took another shot at trying to get somebody to help Eckler, and they went out here and tried to take their shot on Spiller. So I'm just not all the way in on Kelly.
Before I get to this next question, I do want to say this. I don't know if any of you all saw this past week, but Austin Eckler was on Yahoo and told everybody then, I believe it was Tuesday right before waivers, because we all know that if anybody in the fan or in NFL cares about our fantasy team, Austin Eckler does. As much fantasy as he plays, he gives a damn. Yeah. And he told everybody, go get Joshua Kelly. So take that for what it is. Team out of nowhere. What's up, guys? Start to full PPR. Puka, Godwin, Judy, or Burks. Let's start with you, Kyle.
Is Puka playing? He's
trending towards playing. That's what the last report I saw said.
All right, I've seen enough from Puka. I'm going to go with him if he's playing. He was targeted like crazy for the Rams. Cooper Kupp's out once again. No reason why not to shy from him. And Judy, I want to see what I get from him with that hammy. Let's see what he can do first. Treylon Burks. I know I'm a Titans fan, but I just don't trust him. I need to see a good game out of Burks as well. So I'm going to go with Puka on this one.
Pick 2. Who's your second one? Pick 2.
Then Chris Godwin will be my second.
Preston.
All right, I'm up in the air between Puka and Godwin. They're playing the Bears, and the Bears defense looks putrid as of week 1. Now it is week 1. I love Puka, and Puka is running those routes where I don't care what defense he's playing, he's gonna eat. So I'm gonna go with Puka 1, Godwin 2, Burks 3, and Judy 4, only because I got to see how Judy looks.
Nice.
Jorge?
I'll go Puka and Godwin also. I do like Burks, though, this week. I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to be a decoy. So this could be Burks' coming out party here. But I'll go with Puka and Godwin.
Yeah, I'm on that same train. I have a good bit of Judy shares, and I don't think I'm starting him in one league because I got to see it first. IDB question, Montez Sweat or Khalil Mack?
Both of them have really good matchups this week. I have on my rankings, which you can find over at Fantasy and Frames, and you can find Nate and Hollywood's rankings at fantasyandframes.com. These two guys finished in the top 12 in Fantasy Pros expert consensus ranking for week 1. Just continuing on, just the impressive trend we have here for recognition at Fantasy and Frames for our IDP content. I have Montez Sweat at 7 and Khalil Mack at 12. So I'll lean towards Sweat. No, I'm not being a homer, but I don't think you can go wrong with either play this week.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I like the Khalil Mack play, but Montez Sweat is just a beast. Chris B got 1 PPR for a tight end. Higbee, Otten, or Jawan Johnson. Real quick, Jorge, which one?
Higbee.
Kyle?
Higbee.
Preston.
Juwan.
And I was just fixing to say, I
like Juwan.
Yeah, I like Juwan this week with the Saints there. So take it for what it is. Sorry, we're split on this one. 2 Higbee, 2 Juwan. I want to address this real quick, Sam. Sam says, convince me that the NFL is not scripted, trying to process the fact that Aaron Rodgers got injured for the whole season on the first drive. Listen, the Jets, the NFL put the Jets into, I think it's like 6 primetime games. There's no way in hell that they put the Jets in 6 primetime games. Zach Wilson would be on primetime. There's your answer for that quickly. All right, fellas, let's get into some of these games here, these 1 o'clock games. We got the Packers, Falcons, over under of 40. Preston, sell me on who's winning this game and who is going to be the biggest fantasy relevant player, and why is it going to be Desmond Ridder?
I love Ridder. I've been on Ridder all season. Let me just say, I like the Falcons to win this game because they're at home. They have to utilize those weapons they have. I don't think Arthur Smith, even though he's a run heavy kind of guy, I don't see them getting all those weapons. And this was under his regime, getting all those weapons and not utilizing them. They're going to have to use them this time because the Packers are going to score points. But I see Drake having a comeback game, and they're gonna feed Bijan. Desmond Ridder will be a top 12 quarterback this week.
Come on. Good morning. Dropping spicy takes right off the bat. Wow.
Yes, that's right. I
All
like
right, so
Ridder. I've been on Ridder all season. I gotta ride with the brand.
Yeah, my issue is he only threw 18 passes last week for 115 yards. And by the way, Drake London was targeted 1 time.
They're gonna have to throw that ball this time.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that Green Bay's got a solid defense, right? I mean, you think he's going to be able to get the ball out there, though? Okay. All right. Any rebuttal on your side, Kyle?
Yeah, I see it totally different. I see Arthur Smith sticking to his same script, running the football, pounding it down. How much usage are we going to see out of Tyler Algier again? I mean, he was on the field 56% of the snaps. He had 15 carries last week for 75 yards. That's averaging 5 yards a clip. I get Bijan's the real deal, but if I'm Arthur Smith, I got to continue to rotate these 2 backs until I see it not work. I know it's just one game, but did anyone else get the sense that maybe there's potentially a 2009 Carolina Panther backfield with D'Angelo Williams, Jonathan Stewart, each having 1,000 yards? I think this offense can do it.
Well,
the opportunity is going to be there.
I know it's not on air, but there was a conversation. Chris B was involved in this conversation. There was a conversation between myself and Drew of 4th and Frames, and we had the battle of this, and I said that Algiers, this was before the season started, Algiers is going to have a role and going to be fantasy relevant, and I think it's going to stay that way. Jorge.
Yes, sir.
Packers, Falcons. Yeah. You rebuttal on any of this offensive stuff that we just brought up, but I want you to tell us also about both teams, IDP side, who's relevant and who to stay away from in this game.
Sure. So let's go with let's save the IDP for a second. In terms of, look, I'm on board the Jordan Love train. I think Jordan Love kind of has been showing in the preseason, showed last week without Christian Watson, with a hobbled Romeo Doubs, that he can get it done. He can get it done. He performed for you very well last week for fantasy purposes. No Christian Watson again, no Aaron Jones, but you still got AJ Dillon. Jordan Love doesn't force anything. I think that's one of the commentators said last week during the game. He just takes what's there and he just makes plays, and that's what he's going to have to do against Atlanta, who's down. Troy Anderson, 2nd-year linebacker, so it's really going to be the Caden Ellis show. Switching to IDP for a second there. Jesse Bates, coming off of his 3 interception performance for IDP purposes, was monster-like. you never want to bank on a player being like, oh, well, he had 3 interceptions this week, therefore I should expect the same effort. No, you should not expect that. Yeah, it'd be nice to have, but you're hoping that you get more of a higher tackle for than what he had last week. So it's really the Caden Ellis show at linebacker that I'd be most excited about, followed by Jesse Bates. On the flip side, Devondre Campbell, Quay Walker, playmaking abilities. Yeah, Rashawn Gary on limited snaps coming back from his injury last year was very impressive. Preston Smith, kind of took a back seat to these edge rushers, but the edge rusher I want to talk about that I'm actually pretty excited about is the rookie Lucas Van Ness. He should have a prime matchup this week for the Green Bay Packers. So, if I had to rate these players, I think I would go Caden Ellis, Devondre Campbell, Lucas Van Ness, and Quay Walker. Really, really excited to see what Van Ness can do in his second game.
Real quick, I missed the injuries on this. Aaron Jones and Christian Watson are both trending to be out, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Jorge?
That is correct, yep.
And Quay Walker in concussion protocol still?
I do not believe so. From what I've heard, he's good to go, or should be good to go this week.
All right. And Rashawn Gary was limited in practice. I know brought that up only because there was a couple of names you brought up right there, but it looks like Rashawn Gary is a good to go, just limited in practice. Maybe maybe a vet's limited in practice there. Happy football day there to you, Mark, as well. Need 2 running backs, Brian Robinson, David Montgomery, Cam Akers, or Raheem Mostert, full PPR. Preston, give me 2 running backs here.
Montgomery and Mostert.
Kyle.
I'm going to go Montgomery.
I don't like Brian Robinson against this Denver defense.
I'm going to go Montgomery. I hate to do it, but I'm gonna try my luck here with Cam Akers.
Against the 49ers defense?
Oh, yeah, they were playing. All right, I'm going to switch back to Brian. I'd rather have Brian. I don't trust Mostert. I don't like Mostert's matchup either. But Montgomery for sure. And, yeah, I'm tossed up between Brian Robinson and Cam Akers. I'll slide over to Brian Robinson. Yeah. It's tough, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't like the Patriots matchup. I think, which is a compliment to your team there, Preston. I think I'm going to go Montgomery and Brian Robinson. I think this Detroit Seattle game is going to be a shootout like it was last year, so that's going to be a lot of fun. So give me all the points with that. And Brian Robinson showed last week that he can be a consistent producer if given the volume. I think we've seen enough in Washington of Antonio Gibson trying to be the in between the tackles, running back, like just get him in space, get him the ball. Okay. So I think you're safe with volume there and Montgomery and the high scoring game.
Yeah. My concern with Montgomery is I believe the Lions are going to go to Gibbs a lot sooner and a lot more. But those would be the 2 as well. I would take Brian Robinson and Montgomery just because of the matchups. Full PPR, got a trade offer. Zay Flowers and Elijah Mitchell for London and Akers. Which side of the trade are you on there, Jorge?
Yeah, getting Zay Flowers and Elijah Mitchell for giving up London and Akers, absolutely. Smash accept there. Yeah, I want all the Zay Flowers I can get. And Elijah Mitchell has standalone value, especially down the stretch. Because they are going to try to lessen McCaffrey's workload. That was the report in the preseason. So, give me that.
Same thing for you, Kyle?
Yeah, I have to agree, especially if you do have Christian McCaffrey. It's a great handcuff there. I love Flowers. Mitchell can also still be used, like Jorge said, down the stretch because they're not gonna feed Christian McCaffrey like we're used to seeing. I think they want to preserve him. So Mitchell's still a good stash. Yeah, I accept that.
Preston.
Yeah, I agree with the Flowers and Mitchell there. Like I said in one of my articles, I had Elijah Mitchell as my one of my top 3 backups because of that fact. So and as Zay Flowers showed enough, he's gonna be that number 2 behind Andrews.
Yeah, and if you didn't see that short that Preston put out, he put out his top 3 backup running backs that you need to go in and keep an eye on and put on your squads there. And Elijah Mitchell was one of those. I'm with you. Anytime you can get Zay Flowers, right now he looks like he's going to be that dude in Baltimore. Go grab him. And you're not giving up much with giving up London, with not getting targeted. And who knows what's going on with Cam Akers. I mean, your guess is as good as mine. All right, let's move on to the second game.
So disappointed.
Yeah, right. The Bills, Raiders at the Bills, over under of 47. Who wants to take Bills side? I'll let Preston take a choice here. You know, Raiders or the Bills, take a side. Who's going to be the relevant player?
Let me put out there, being a Pats fan, y'all know I hate the Bills, but I got to go with them in this matchup. I liked what I seen out of how they was using Cook last week. I loved how they was using Cook, and Stephon Diggs is going to eat. Josh Allen's going to throw his 2 picks a game, but they're still going to come out on top.
All right, Kyle, you get the Raiders side.
Wonderful. Jacoby Myers had a hell of a game last week. I don't know if that's going to happen again. What did he have? 2 touchdowns. I'm going to go Devontae Adams on this one. I know for the Raiders. I know he still had his targets last week. Didn't score. I think it's his turn. I think it's going to be a Devontae Adams show for the Raiders side.
Real quick though, you brought up Jacoby Myers, and he is still in concussion protocol, trending like he's not going to play this week.
I think he's not going to play. He's not going to play.
Then I'm going to go Devontae Adams, but maybe this is Josh Jacobs' wake-up call too.
Yeah, he didn't have a great game last week, and I think it is. Yeah, he's poised to have a great game. Josh Jacobs is. All right, Jorge, this is your time to shine. Raiders, Bills, 2 dynamic defenses, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, for IDP purposes, you're some players here you want to pay attention to. Terrell Bernard had a good game last week, 11 total tackles. Kind of taking over the middle linebacker spot there for Buffalo. Jordan Poyer, and again, veteran, been a good IDP stalwart at defensive back, but kind of put up, DB2, DB3 numbers. So you have to wonder what's going on in that situation. That's pretty much all I'm really looking at. Leonard Floyd, who in some formats and some platforms has dual linebacker defensive line eligibility. He's somebody that could potentially be a good DL3 with DL2 upside. On the flip side, Max Crosby is one of the best pass rushers in all of football. Just put up a monster game last week. But there's a player here, Devon Diablo, linebacker. Again, injuries have not been his friend, but when healthy, this guy is a stud linebacker. Tackle efficiency is very good. Has plenty of opportunity there. But a player that I really want to talk about, and I talked about him in the IDP waiver wire article, which you can find at fantasyandframes.com. You can find all of our articles, Preston's article, all of our articles at fantasyandframes.com. I see it in the chat. Nate Hobbs, cornerback. Now, normally, what you see amongst all the defensive backs is that the strong safeties tend to crowd the box and act as de facto linebackers, racking up the tackles. Well, you're getting Nate Hobbs as a cornerback, had more box snaps than any other defensive back, more than all the safeties and any other cornerbacks. This guy is doing it from a tackle standpoint, and he's doing it for making plays all over the field. Truly a Swiss Army knife. And if the box snaps stay consistent, this guy has DB1 value going forward. And he's being not looked at all because he's a cornerback. And it's just really impressive what he's been doing.
I mean, Crispy always has the guys that are deeper in the trenches and comes up with some great names. If you're not watching Crispy on 4th and Frames, dude, you're a stud. All right, Dynasty League trade question here. Devontae Adams for Tutu Atwell and Javonte, deep RB roster. Listen, real quick, it's a dynasty league. I ain't trading Adams for Tutu Atwell, and I ain't doing it. But go ahead, Jorge. Tell us which side you're on here.
He has a deep running back roster, so so really you're asking me, is it Tutu for Devontae Adams? It depends. If like you're in, this is a very loaded question. Like if you're in, win now mode, I don't know if I could pull the trigger here with Devontae Adams. Just, he has a few good years left. But if you're in rebuild mode, I would make the trade.
Ooh. Kyle?
I would try to see if I can get something better. If you can't, I think you just ride with Devontae Adams then, because I think you could do better. You have to be able to do better than that.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get over here to this other one. Blurpy got a start 4 full PPR. Garrett Wilson, Debo, Rashad White, AJ Dillon. I think I'm low-key thinking about benching Wilson this week, but I don't know if I should. I had that same question in a couple leagues if I bench Wilson. One of the leagues was either Wilson or Judy to start, and I'm sticking with Wilson. Just again, like I said, I wanted to see what he has or what Judy has in the tank for this week here. But Jorge, are we starting your pick 4 here? He says.
Oh, I'm definitely going. I'm going Debo, Connor this week, Dillon, and Rashad White. I'm benching Wilson. Going against Dallas this week with Zach Wilson, who got the ball to Garrett Wilson on the flukiest of touchdown passes. The guy pretty much was a defensive back, tipped the ball to himself, and just managed to, you can't. Not against this Dallas defense. They're too good. Connor has a great matchup against the Giants. Dillon's going to get volume, and Rashad White against the Bears. Look for him to. This is kind of a telling situation for Tampa in terms of the running back situation, but I'd rather have Rashad White and his PPR upside versus Josh Kelly.
Kyle?
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm benching Wilson. I'm going Debo, White, Dillon, Connor. Same reasons as Jorge. Garrett Wilson saved his fantasy day last week with that crazy touchdown that he got. If he didn't catch that ball, he didn't have a good fantasy day. And Zach Wilson, I have Wilson in a league, and I'm benching him with full confidence. I just can't trust Zach right now.
Preston, you on that bench Wilson as well?
Same.
It's tough.
It is tough. Wilson and Lee and Kelly.
All right. You're rolling with Debo, Rashad White, AJ Dillon, and Connor there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just real quick, I want to go back to Chris's trade question there on the Dynasty. He would be receiving Adams, it looks like. He'd be getting Devontae Adams. So then in that case, absolutely. So you're sending Atwell and Javonte to get Adams. I'm smashing that. Bench Wilson and IDP.
That's good.
I'm going to jump on a limb here and say you're referring to Logan Wilson, Melissa. If you could just give me which player you're talking about. No, I have Logan Wilson as my LB7. I think he has a better game this week against Baltimore, if that is the Wilson that you are referring to.
All right, so let's move on to the next game there, and I'm going to let you lead this one on. No, Garrett Wilson, she says, and IDP or G Wilson.
I mean, yeah, I don't care whether it's an IDP league or just your standard, offensive, defensive, special teams league, whatever. I'm benching Garrett Wilson this week.
All right, Jorge, I know this is not your team, but I'm going to let you lead this one off because they're right up the road from you. Ravens at the Bengals, over under a 46. Let's talk about the offensive side and then go right ahead and talk about your defensive side on this game.
Look, I love this. I'm all on board the Zay Flowers bandwagon. I think this is a good opportunity against this Bengals defense. It's hard. It's hard to talk about the Bengals defense. It's hard to talk about the Bengals positively after last week. Obviously, Chase should have a bounce back. Joe Burrow should have a bounce back. Joe Mixon, I think he's going to be kind of the odd man out in terms of, volume is on his side, but I'm a little bit lower on him than others. T. Higgins, that's the one that really gets me. He's really boomer bust. I don't. A lot of people like to have him as their wide receiver 2 or rank him as their wide receiver 2. I have a hard time putting a boomer bust player as a wide receiver 2, even though the talent is there. He's just not. I don't think he's utilized properly. Kind of ties into the whole where we're not going to bring him back, or that's at least the report that they have there coming out of Baltimore. For IDP purposes, I do like Jermaine Pratt. He was a stud last week. Nate wrote about him in his start and sit article for IDP. Logan Wilson, Dax Hill had a great game last year. I mean, these are the 3 names you want to be paying attention to on the Bengals. Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard. Hubbard played better. Hendrickson is kind of very sack dependent, but he gets there. On the flip side for Baltimore, Kyle Hamilton was somebody that I think Nate was very high on. Didn't pan out last week. Roquan Smith, Patrick Queen picking up as the linebacker tandem in Baltimore that they were last year. Somebody to pay attention to, though. Not Odefe Owe, but David Ojabo. You remember last year coming out of Michigan, I believe it was Michigan, tore his Achilles on his pro day, missed all of last year, had a fantastic game last week. He should, against this Bengals porous offensive line, hopefully find more success this week. I'm rolling the dice on him if I'm in a really deep league. And if not, I'm waiting to see how he does today or tomorrow night, excuse me. And if he does well, you better believe he's going to be on my waiver wire article this week.
Yeah, real quick, I wanted to touch back on Melissa's. She asked you about benching Wilson in the IDP league. Garrett Wilson. She says bench Garrett Wilson. Looks like her options are OBJ or Van Jefferson. At that point, I guess I'm sticking with Garrett. I'm personally sticking with Garrett Wilson over those 2 options. Jorge.
No, wow, I can't believe I'm about to say. I'd rather have Beckham, to be honest with you. Like I trust Lamar Jackson getting the ball to his playmakers than I do Zach Wilson getting the ball to his.
That's fair. I guess that's fair. All right, Preston. Ravens, Bengals. I'll let you have the Bengals side of the ball. What are you looking for from the Bengals with an over under of 46? Are you in on T. Higgins this week?
I'm looking for a bounce back from T. Higgins. I don't agree with Jorge saying that he's pretty much a boom and bust. I think he's pretty much a consistent. He consistently will get you 10, 15. And then on his explosive games, he'll get you 20, 25 in half PPR. Yeah, that was an outlier. 0 for 8. Yeah, that's not T. Higgins. I see it differently. So I see T. Higgins bouncing back, and he's gonna play for that contract this season. I love T. Higgins.
All right, Kyle, you got the Ravens side. Offensively, who are you looking at to have a breakout game? Please do not jump on Jorge's bandwagon and go the whole OBJ thing today. Don't do it.
I'm not, but if I could just touch on T. Higgins real quick, I think it's very important as a T. Higgins owner myself, is just to remain patient with him. He still had the 9 targets. You just have to look. The Bengals offense had a horrible game. Joe Burrow's been out of camp since the calf injury. It's expected to maybe, he's going to ease back in. It's very important if you have T. Higgins, just remain patient and things will start to get rolling for him soon. As far as the Baltimore Ravens side, first thing that comes to mind is running back. Just an awful injury for J.K. Dobbins, out for the year with Achilles. So who's going to step up? I tend to think it's going to be more of a committee with both Justice Hill and Gus Edwards. And maybe even Lamar Jackson says, hey, screw Todd Monken's offense. I'm going to take off running. It's possible. I think with not having as many preseason games that Lamar Jackson, he started out a little rough last week, didn't have that great of a game. And, I think it's possible that he just takes off running, and we get Mark Andrews back, so that'll help the Baltimore offense, especially on third down. And it turns to Zay Flowers. Everybody's giving him flowers, no pun intended, but Mark Andrews is back now. So I think we got to hold back the reins just a hair, because Mark Andrews is going to eat into those targets and maybe 20-30%. So let's pump the brakes a little bit on Zay Flowers with Mark Andrews back.
Yeah, Miles Sanders or David Montgomery, half PPR. Kyle?
I'll go Montgomery.
Jorge?
Yeah, I'm sticking with this Lions, this team, this offense in this game this week. I'll go Montgomery also.
Preston? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good. Go ahead, Preston.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Montgomery on that as well.
All right, Blurpy has this question right up here. Defensive question: Colts, Texans, who they're playing each other, or the Bills D this week. I'm taking the Bills D just because of the matchup against the Raiders. I don't think the Raiders are that good. You might have the breakout with Devontae, but it's still, that's the only player that they have to worry about outside of Josh Jacobs. I think the Bills defense is better than both the Colts and Texans, even though both of those teams are with rookie quarterbacks. Anything on the defensive side right there for Blurpy there, Jorge?
I'm going to go with the Colts, and Chris Burns, aka Dynasty Deviant, over on Twitter, put out our start and sit article for the week, and he had the Colts on there. I mentioned it earlier. The Texans are going to be without 4 of their starting offensive linemen. DeForest Buckner, Kwity Paye, even Shaq Leonard coming off the edge, blitzing from the linebacker spot. This is going to be a long day for CJ Stroud. Let me just say that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm sticking with the Bills. I forgot you had said there was going to be 4 offensive linemen not in that game for Houston, but I'm still going to stick with the Bills. I'm going to stay with my gut. Let's talk about this Seahawks-Lions game. I'll start with you, Preston. I'll give you the Seahawks. What do you expect out of DK, Lockett, and JSN there? Is Geno Smith bound for a bounce back game, I guess would be the right way to say it, at Detroit in the Dome? What are you thinking there with Seattle?
Now, the opener, I saw a lot of improvement out of the Lions secondary. Again, even though they was without Kansas City was without Kelsey, they did a pretty good job containing Pat Mahomes last week. And I've never been with the hype of Geno. I thought Geno had a great season, but he kind of tapered off by the end of last season. So I see Detroit Lions locking down, and they're going to depend heavily on this run game. So no, I don't see no bounce back from Geno this week.
All right. Jorge, what do you think about
DK is going to get his regardless. But that's it.
Yeah. Thoughts. So you want offense or you want defense? What do you want?
You definitely got to give the defensive side, the IDP side as well, but you can go ahead and take your offensive side, and give the IDP side as well.
I think I think the top 2 receivers for Seattle are gonna get theirs, Lockett and DK Metcalf, of course. But I wouldn't be surprised if JSN gets in some valuable targets here, maybe in the red zone and whatnot. Something to pay attention to. Kenneth Walker, in the Zach Charbonnet, split backfield that we were all anticipating. No, it was clearly Kenneth Walker's backfield last week. So I think we need to temper our expectation on rookie performance from Charbonnet, at least this early on in the season. On the flip side, we're seeing all the reports come in. Jahmyr Gibbs is supposed to have a bigger role I hope so, because he played lights out when given the opportunity versus Kansas City. I still think Montgomery is going to get some work also. I don't think it's going to be a complete flip from what it was in week 1. I think you're still going to get opportunities there. I like Jared Goff. I think there's plenty of weapons on this offense. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta showed something last week. For a deep pull, Josh Reynolds, played with Jared Goff in Los Angeles. That could be another situation to pay attention to. On the flip side, for IDP, Aiden Hutchinson put on a masterclass of just how to get around his blocks and just get to the quarterback. Just fantastic. Whether it was, he didn't get a sack last week, but the pressures were there. He has some tackle upside. You go to the linebacking situation. Nobody, Pro Football Focus, as well as other people who watch film, do not like Alex Anzalone at linebacker, but he gets you like serviceable numbers for IDP. So it's kind of like, yeah, okay, you win by default, but don't read too much into it.
Real quick on that, because if you watch the game, the pressures that Aiden Hutchinson was getting there, it was freeing up Alex Anzalone, and Alex Anzalone was getting the benefit of Aiden Hutchinson putting that pressure in there. And so he was getting the hits on the quarterback, but it was, if you watch the game, it was actually, Hutchinson taking up 2 and 3 defenders at times for Alex Anzalone to get in there. So, yeah.
Looking at the stats last week, you had 6 total tackles for Anzalone, 1 quarterback hit, 1 PD, 1 pass deflection. So I don't know how much Anzalone was actually pressuring a quarterback. He has a high missed tackle percentage, something you don't want to see. You rather have the linebackers hit more often than not than miss on a tackle. So that's again, for IDP purposes, he's by default, a serviceable linebacker. But Chauncey Gardner-Johnson last week, just fantastic. 5 tackles, 2 passes deflections. Picking up kind of where he left off in Philadelphia last year. So, just very high on him. Everybody likes Brian Branch and that pick 6. Again, you can't bank on interceptions from week to week. You kind of have to have the tackle floor, at least, either a high tackle floor or a high pass deflection floor. You weren't really seeing that. So kudos to the rookie. You're definitely going to see increased snaps here from him as the season goes on, but it's CJ Gardner-Johnson for IDP purposes if you're going to start a Detroit line.
Let me kick it back over to Preston. Preston, you had one more thing to add here.
Yeah, and I also forgot to mention that both of Seattle's starting tackles were knocked out of the game last week. I wonder what their status is as well, because that'll be a feast for Aiden Hutchinson as well.
Yeah, Charles Cross is out.
I can't hear you, Gator.
Yeah, Charles Cross is the only one that I'm seeing right now, a tackle for the Seattle Seahawks that is out. The other tackle is not even listed on the injury report. So, all right, anything to add there, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, if Matthew Stafford and his receiving core missing Cooper Kupp did what they did against the Seahawks, where he threw for 340 yards, somehow not getting a touchdown, is just bananas. But doing what they did, and now you're going to get the Detroit Lions with Jared Goff, Amon-Ra, Jahmyr Gibbs, fire them all, David Montgomery, even Sam Laporta to some extent, who looked pretty good against Kansas City. I want every piece of that Lions offense today.
Yeah, I like this matchup for the Lions as well. Welcome in, Mr. David Ibrahim. How we doing, sir? Good morning out there. 7 a.m., bright and early for you on the West Coast. How we doing?
Doing all right. Top of the morning, fellas.
What's going on, dude?
Same old.
Good morning. Let's go. We got it. All right, so we are moving on to first of all, I'll ask David this quick question. Anything on the Lions Seahawks game that you're looking for this week?
I want to see there's a lot of Aaron Rodgers owners who are looking to replace him. I think Jared Goff could be that guy. I mean, we forget who he was a few years ago, and I mean, I think he showed it, week 1 of last year, right? Week 1 last week, last Thursday night. Yeah. Look, he's good for 250, 2 or 3 touchdowns. I think he could be a good Aaron Rodgers replacement if people are looking for options out there. We got Jameson Williams coming back pretty soon. I mean, I don't know if he's playing today or maybe next week, but nonetheless, it's a stacked offense. It's going to get even stronger. Good defense. I really like what Jared Goff has to offer potentially.
Yeah, I love that take on Jared Goff. He's going to be. What I like about Jared Goff is he's not turning the ball over. So that does help, of course, both fantasy and real life. So moving on to the Colts Texans, 2 rookie quarterbacks. I think it's the first time ever that 2 rookie quarterbacks under the age of 21 will be facing off in the NFL. Interesting stat there. Over under on this one is 39. David, I'll let you lead this off. Colts Texans. What do you got?
I think this is going to be an ugly game, to be honest. I think it's going to be pretty low scoring. Yeah, they're going to try run the ball. There's going to be a lot of INTs. This is going to be the bust of the week, to be honest. I don't have any high expectations.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, the Colts hung in there last week against the Jags, pretty much just lost that game in the fourth quarter. They played well. Pittman had 8 catches, 97 yards, and a score. Richardson was efficient with the football last week, throwing 233 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, adding 40 yards on the ground with a score. Now they get Houston defense, which, DeMeco Ryans has them stepping up, playing really good defense. I think I agree there. It's going to be a defensive battle here. Low scoring game. I think Vegas has that right. Yeah, but if you have Michael Pittman, you probably have to start him. Other than that, on the Colts side, I can't think of anyone else who had maybe Anthony Richardson in a deeper league or super flex. Other than that, Houston side, Dameon Pierce, that's about it for me.
Right. Yep. All right, Jorge, give me the IDP stuff going on with the Colts Texans. Like you talked about earlier, you got the Texans have 4 offensive linemen that are out. Is that correct? And then I think that's what you said. So
yeah, go
ahead and give me the IDP side.
So for the Colts, Kwity Paye, DeForest Buckner, linebacker, Zaire Franklin. I think Shaq Leonard gets a bounce back. Julian Blackman has been playing a lot of box snaps, converted slot cornerback, free safety to the strong safety position. I think you see an increased role in him this week. Flipping over to the Texans, Will Anderson is a monster among men. He is fantastic. He is a solid start. Jonathan Grenard, another solid start. Denzel Perryman at linebacker, excellent start. He's in my top 12 this week. No Jalen Petrie at defensive back this week, so keep an eye on that as well. So those would be my IDP players. I will say for the Colts, Zach Moss, I believe, is returning and should be the RB1 for the team. I don't know how much faith anybody's putting in the Zach Moss, but just something to pay attention to the last couple weeks while Jonathan Taylor is still on IR.
Yeah, Jalen Petrie and Jimmy Ward are both listed as out for this game. Does that give you any hope that maybe the Colts go a little bit more in the air down the field?
Early on, I think the second half of the game, if they get up by a bunch, they're not going to, Anthony Richardson doesn't need to scramble. He doesn't have to do, anything that, we talked about all the key players there for the Colts. Michael Pittman, I think, has had a huge resurgence and will continue to have that with Anthony Richardson. But I think you'll see more of the running game, which is why I brought up Zach Moss, like just somebody to pay attention to. But nobody. Let me put it like this: if you're desperate for a running back situation, it doesn't hurt to have the starting running back for a team, especially that should be up by a lot come the second half. Am I thrilled about it? No.
Right on. Sorry about that. All right, let's get to the highest scoring game or the highest over-under game on the slate today. 51 points. Chiefs at the Jaguars, a rematch of a playoff game from last year. Preston, let's start you off. Let's see what you got with the Chiefs Jaguars. Who's the one guy that stands out to you in this game?
Calvin Ridley again. He will do it again. And I think ETN will have a great game as well. But this Jaguars offense is something to be reckoned with. I'm telling you, it's going to be across the board. Kansas City is going to fall 0-2 after this week.
Ooh, I like it. All right, Dave, what do you got in this game? Jaguars, Chiefs, or Chiefs at the Jaguars over under a 51?
Look, I think it's going to be an under, and I hate to say it, but I think this might be I wouldn't say demise, but this is going to be the start of the Chiefs sucking. I think the Chiefs might not even make playoffs this year. Look, we saw what a Travis Kelce-less Chiefs look like, and it was horrible. I mean, Pacheco was not good. CEH is their number 2, who's terrible. Their wide receivers, I mean, they're crap.
I knew it. I freaking knew it.
The timing. The timing.
There we go. The timing is
This is scripted. This is scripted right here.
Oh, there we go. Perfect timing. There we go. I'm just berating your Chiefs there.
No, David, go ahead.
Look, I mean, I think we found I guess the only real weapon they have is Kelce, and teams are just going to absolutely double cover him. Now, is Kelce still going to feast? Of course, he's Travis Kelce, but other than Kelce, there's really not much offensive weapons they got there. And defensively, man, they got exposed last week. So I think they're going to have a lot more losses than people give them credit for. I don't know if this is going to be an easy win at all. If there's any real easy wins for the Chiefs, but it'll be a struggle.
Well, since he pops in here, Nate, David's over here, just berating your Chiefs, as he says. You get Chris Jones back this week. What are you expecting with this Jaguar or the Jaguars Chiefs game overall 51 again? And good morning, by the way.
Yeah, great morning. I guess going for off what he said, sure. Yeah, the only weapon they've had is Travis Kelce. Teams are going to make sure that he doesn't, get involved, which is the entire narrative of the Super Bowl last year. That what happened? They found out that it didn't matter necessarily. The surefire, I'd say, conversations about, is it Tyreek Hill? Without Tyreek, what's going to happen? Yeah, they're not going to be any good. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're probably barely going to win 8 games. Sure, it was exposed. Let me ask you guys a question. What was your over-under for Detroit this year in terms of wins? Was it 4 or was it closer to 9 or 10?
For Detroit?
Yeah.
I had them at about 12. I think they win 12 games.
So it took a team without Travis Kelce, without Chris Jones, a pick 6, and 4 drop passes to beat a 12-win team, to beat the Chiefs by 1 point, and the Chiefs are exposed. That to me says that either you're overhyping the Lions or underestimating the Chiefs. Now, that is just me ranting because why not? The Jags pose a significant threat as far as I'm concerned. There's the biggest issue for this week, in my opinion, is going to be stopping the involvement of Travis Etienne, which is the one thing they've always had an issue with, pass catching running backs. And he ran a ton of routes last week, was heavily involved in everything, all phases of the game. So
did anyone see that block he put for Ridley?
And that
was impressive. That was very impressive.
It's that type of stuff that doesn't have me too concerned with Tank Bigsby, and that's not Tank Bigsby knock, but yeah, I think it's going to be. I think that 54 implied total from last week that didn't hit, it might actually hit this week. We'll see. I don't know. I'm jumping in a little cold to talk about the Chiefs from the get-go. I need to find a less animated team for me to get the juices going, I guess.
with all the drops, with all the Kansas City drops last week, what is the over/under targets for Travis Kelce today? 15.
Pivot that. I will say I bet Kadarius Toney has 7 targets today.
Okay,
that's the Andy Reid way. It's the Andy Reid way. Whenever someone has a bad game or bad situation,
pick him back up.
Yeah. Now, does he catch those balls? Are they gadget plays? Are they? Yeah, probably. They're probably not earned routes or earned targets as much as they are design targets, but that's okay. That wouldn't shock me in the least.
All right, Jorge, give me the IDP side of things for the Jaguars and Chiefs game here.
So as Nate says, the real Josh Allen for the Jacksonville Jaguars should have the offensive tackles for the Chiefs don't really concern me from ranking Josh Allen where I do. I currently have him as my DL 10. So he should have a decent game. Linebacker, Foyesade Oluokun, just consistent as hell in the tackle department. Defensive back, Nate, we talk about our guy, Rayshawn Jenkins, but it was Andre Cisco who had the better week in week 1. And what I expect to be a kind of a pass-happy affair here with Kansas City and Jacksonville. He could be in line for some more playing more in coverage than Rayshawn Jenkins this week.
Do we remember a couple of years ago when Josh Allen sacked Josh Allen?
I did, yes.
And they had a ticker that came up and it said it's the first time in NFL history that a quarterback has been sacked by someone with their own name.
Yeah,
it came up immediately. Someone's job was waiting there with a button, waiting for Josh Allen to sack Josh Allen to hit yes play.
Wasn't that in the exact same game where Josh Allen intercepted Josh Allen?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that was the same game, actually.
Okay.
It was in Jacksonville, if memory serves me correctly.
Yep.
On the flip side, Nate, do you want to take IDP for the Chiefs for you guys?
Yeah, that's fine. I don't know how quick Chris Jones will get involved as far as IDP relevancy. George Karlaftis was pretty impressive last week. It wasn't just his power and speed moves off the ball. He batted down a few passes, so he looked pretty immediately engaged. And then I would say Nick Bolton's obviously a must start. The question's going to be, is Trent McDuffie taking the L'Jarius Sneed type role from last year? And I think the answer is looking like that. He's played a lot of box snaps, mostly in the slot. They were blitzing him off the corner. He was around plenty of different plays as far as that upside tackle floor that you're looking for out of him. And so can't say he's a must start yet from an IDP standpoint from defensive back, but he's working his way there. So if you're able to get in early, especially if you have a cornerback rank, position that you have to fill, it's a really solid, sneaky pick. And good morning to everybody else, by the way. How are you guys?
Good morning, Jeremy. Right here, he says an ugly flex question, half PPR: Zay Jones versus Kansas City or P Ryan versus Washington. Kyle, let's start with you. Let's go around the frames.
Sorry, I was doing something real quick. So Zay Jones or P Ryan, I will go Zay Jones in a shootout.
Zay Jones in a shootout. Nate.
Zay.
Jorge.
Zay.
Preston.
I'm gonna go with Zay.
Okay. And Dave.
I'm going to go P. Ryan. I like the volume he had, and I mean they're using him as a dual threat running back. I'm not really that impressed with Javonte Williams, what he did last week. I thought he might come out and be a true one, but they trust P. Ryan a lot, so the volume is going to be there for P. Ryan. What he does with it is another question. Look, I think he's good for at least 80 yards and a touchdown.
I like it. All right, Nate, you got anything else on the KC IDP side? No? Okay. Moving on to the next game, the Bears at the Bucks, over under of 41. All right, Dave, I'm going to let you take my Bucks. Do not make me mad.
No, I actually am very high on the Bucks this year. I mean, look, Baker Mayfield was the #1 pick a few years back. I understand he's no stud, but he's a great game manager. And you've got weapons there. I mean, you saw what he did with Mike Evans last week. He should have had 2 touchdowns. You know, it was unfortunately a very uncharacteristic drop from Mike Evans. But yeah, they look good against a strong Vikings team. So I'm excited about what we're going to see from the receiving core from the Bucks, to be honest, mainly in Godwin and Evans. So those guys should be solid wide receiver 2s, if not borderline wide receiver 1s going forward. But this will be the week to see if I'm correct there.
Is this also the week that Rachaad White has to get more involved? I mean, I don't know what he had last week was not impressive, especially when it comes to the fantasy side of things. But he does have the pass catching capabilities.
I think this is an aerial attack. I think they're going to use Rachaad White, but I don't think this is a ground and pound team. I think we saw what we're going to get out of Rachaad White last week, and we're going to see that consistently going forward. I can't see any RB1 upside from him. Yeah, he's going to be a safe running back 2, maybe running back 3, but this is the Bucks, I think, going forward.
All right, Preston, you got the Bears side. Go right ahead.
Nope, muted.
Bears bounce back. I've been through this season. I loved what I seen out of Roschon. I just hope the Bears bounce back. That's all I got to say. I hope the Bears bounce back. In the Bucks, in the Bears this week against the Bucks, but we'll see.
Jorge, give me the IDP side.
This is kind of tough for me.
TJ Edwards, ever since they made the signing and free agency of him and Edmonds, it's TJ Edwards there. Jaquan Brisker for the Bears. I feel like I'm missing somebody defensive line for the Bears also, but that notwithstanding, for IDP on the other side, Levante David looks like he's going to be on his way to another 100 tackle season. Shaq Barrett should have a decent game. I think he jumps back into some relevancy for defensive line, linebacker eligible, platforms. Devin White. Trying to think here. Even Antoine Winfield played well last week also, but I think you can find some better options at defensive back. Those are the guys that I'm kind of zeroing in on. Nate probably could give you better, if not more, information on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, real quick though, you for the Bucks, you have Carlton Davis, Savassier Dennis, and Kalijah Cansey are out.
Right.
Yeah, none of those. I mean, Savassier, outside of a cool name, is really just, I think he had 3 snaps last week. I don't expect him, barring an injury. Antoine Winfield, you touched on. I was more impressed than I thought I was going to be because I expected him to play predominantly deep, but he actually split 50-50. They both did. And so we saw if he's closer to line scrimmage and they consistently play him like last week, I'm higher than I have been going in. So, that's something if we're going to do the old, crystal ball thing to look at his snaps again and see where he ends up. Because I have him right now as a middle DB2 with Ryan Neal, both right by each other. You guys know how if you like 2 people on the same team, kind of like we have done with Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf in the past, you just stack them right next to each other. That's kind of the way I am with Ryan Neal and Winfield. So we'll see how that pans out.
Let me ask you this. Who wins that division? I'm thinking it's the Bucks, to be honest. Look, the Saints didn't look that great last week, if we're being honest. And with the Falcons, they're going with Desmond Ridder. It's a ride or die there, and guess what? It's die. I don't think the Falcons do that well. They were very lucky to get away with that win. And the Titans are who the Titans are, but that's a division which is very open. If I had to guess, I'd say Bucks, but I'm curious who you guys think is going to win that division.
I'll leave my fandom bias. I'll stay out.
I think Atlanta takes it. I think they found a recipe that works, and they're going to stick with it.
Kyle?
Yeah, that's probably one of the best questions to ask of all the divisions in the NFL. Who's going to win this division? And I think it's going to be very, very tight the whole way. But early on right now, I'm going to side with Jorge there and go with the Atlanta Falcons actually winning this division.
Yeah, I had the Saints in Atlanta neck and neck, and after watching that, I enjoyed watching what the Bucs did. Nate, you got a take on who wins the NFC South?
Yeah, no, I don't, because I don't want to play clairvoyant on which bad football team is going to play the unworst or the best.
The unworst.
Nate doesn't want to mess up his number one ranking there.
That's right. I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all. Once you get that number one ranking, you want to keep it. Let's get to the last 1 o'clock game of the day. And I'm going to let you, Mr. Kyle, lead us off here. It is the Chargers at the Titans, over under of 45. But I don't want you to talk about your Titans. I want you to talk about why the Chargers and who out of the Chargers team is going to be the fantasy stud this week.
That is a very good question of who to pick from the Chargers. I say fire them all up. I don't know if we touched on it yet, but the Titans corners are missing in action. We got Christian Fulton out. We also have Hooker out. It should be a field day for Justin Herbert. Fire him up. Fire Keenan Allen up. Mike Williams even. Joshua Kelly in a pinch if you needed him. This Chargers offense, I hate to say this wearing the shirt, is most likely probably going to drop 40. If Tua put up 466, I think this is the game Justin Herbert can put up 467 or more. Oof. As I cry right now in my tears here.
I got to be honest, man. I'm really worried about an Austin Eckler-less Chargers. We've seen it before. That is such an integral piece of that offense that it has defenses guessing. Now they don't really have to worry about the ground as much. Look, do I think Josh Kelly is going to do a decent job? For sure. But let's be honest, it's not exactly Austin Eckler, right? He's not going to be that dink and dunk dual threat running back where you need a safety spying on him or what have you. I think they're going to have a lot more time to drop back and just protect passes that Justin's going to throw his way. Still think it's going to be a good game, but I don't think it's going to be as much of a shootout as people think.
This comment is directly at you. What is this if Tua?
I'm not. No. I didn't mean to throw shade at Tua about throwing the deep ball. He could definitely throw the deep ball. I'm just saying this is the game. If Justin Herbert, if anybody in the NFL has the most passing yards in a game, as Tua currently has, it's today with Justin Herbert.
All right, Jorge, Nate. Go ahead, Jorge.
I was going to say, Derek has a question here in the chat. Start to Dameon Pierce, Joshua Kelly, James Cook, or Tyler Algier. Give me the last two right there. Cook and Algier.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on Cook and Algiers. Dave?
Look, you're definitely going Cook. The question is, who do you go out of the other three? I just don't know what formula we're going to get with the Falcons this week. And I heard you guys talking about it earlier on. I mean, are they going to lean more on Bijan? Are they going to lean on Algier? Are they going to have a mix? Keep in mind, we've got Cordarrelle Patterson back again this week as well. So that just adds more fuel to the fire. So what does that running game look like? I'm not saying I don't think Algier is not talented, but I just don't trust the potential volume we're going to get. To be honest, give me Kelly. I think you're safer with the volume. I'm all about opportunities, targets or rush attempts. And I just think Josh Kelly gets more of them than Algier today.
Yeah, and Derek did say this is a PPR as well. Does that change your thought process?
No, not necessarily. Look, I mean, I don't think he's going to get as many catches, but you're still going to get a lot more goal line carries, with Kelly than you will. But yeah, it doesn't move the needle that much. They're not really very pass catching backs, other than maybe James Cook gets used out of the backfield a little bit. But you're playing him out of all those 4 anyway, right? So those other 3 are really north-south runners.
Anybody else got anything to add to that? Then let's go to the IDP side of the Chargers Titans real quick. I'll let Jorge lead us off IDP wise with the Chargers Titans, and then we'll go to Nate to close this game out.
So let me start with the Titans. Let's start at defensive line. I know it's not exactly the sexiest of picks here, but we saw Harold Landry return in limited snaps as an edge rusher last week, and we saw kind of I don't even know if I want to call it the reemergence, but let's just call it emergence of Arden Key and Danico Autry. They both had great games last week. I was looking up on Sleeper, which one of these players I would want to get off of that platform. I believe they have Arden Key as dual eligible versus Danico Autry, I believe, is just listed as a linebacker. So if I had to pick one, I would go Arden Key just because he could fill into the defensive line spot. But you have to wonder now, Harold Landry coming back from the ACL, they're easing him back in. Does he get a full complement of snaps this week? Something to pay attention to. Azeez Al-Shire was kind of disappointing given the volume that he was getting at the linebacker position in terms of snaps. But there was another, is it Gibbons, Nate, that came on strong last week, stronger for IDP purposes for the linebacking core there. And of course, you got Kevin Byard patrolling, the secondary. That is the one shining spot there, Kyle, for your secondary for the Titans. And for IDP purposes, you're going to beat the Titans through the air, not on the ground, I believe. And so there's going to be some opportunity there for Byard to make plays. Nate, you want to take the other side of the ball? Or another side of the ball? Yeah, the other team, whatever.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, everything you hit on with Tennessee's accurate. I do think losing Amani Hooker hurts Kevin Byard's ability to kind of play roam and do what he does best, which is be involved in both passing game and the run game. That notwithstanding, Kevin Byard's still a great play. And watching that question will be is, I don't know if they're going to replicate the 24 pressures between really 4 people last week. I mean, that was it. It was, for the most part. But that being said, the Chargers have some pretty dangerous options this week. First and foremost, Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack. Joey Bosa has been battling a hamstring injury this week. I'm not 100% certain if he's going to be limited or reduced. I don't know if it matters because whoever lines up opposite Dillard is going to be in for a pretty good opportunity because the Tennessee offensive line is really not great. We know that it's getting better. Last week, they had a couple pieces that stood out, but I would bet when I do my defensive line rankings, I hate to say this, Kyle, but I move probably, about 6 or 7 spots for the average player up against Tennessee. Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa both moved up into both being borderline DL1s this week, just because I don't know who's going to take advantage of that mismatch. Derwin James should have an absolute monster day. Eric Kendricks is out. So with that being said, there's a good likelihood that the linebacking core there, Dion Henley's out. It's not really not much in the way of linebackers. So I think Derwin James will probably have a field day with those ancillary, tackles that are going to come his way, especially if it's going to be a Derrick Henry led game or Tajay Spears or whatever they decide to do in Tennessee. Confuse us and piss us off.
Well, that wraps up our 1:00 games. We are going to kick it over to one of the ladies of Fantasy in Frames and her tailgating in Frames episode next.
I love playing two-hand touch. Eating way too much.
Guys, welcome to Tailgating in Frames. I'm your host, Courtney, and you can find me on Love Tractor 3 at Twitter. More importantly, you can find me right here on Fantasy in Frames. Whew, what a week one we had, huh? Teams that won weren't supposed to, and teams that were supposed to win didn't. Today, I'm going to make you a quick and easy dip to get on the table so that you can go finish watching these games, start watching these games, finish your lineups, dominate your Sunday, but eat good while you're doing it. I'm making quarterback cream cheese dip. Why am I calling it quarterback cream cheese dip? Because I want to talk about last week how two of our top-rated quarterbacks, Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, kind of laid an egg. Big old duds, right?
What you say?
That wasn't supposed to happen, was it? So we are dedicating it this week to our meal, to their game of the week in my books. That is the Ravens and the Bengals. So we can see if they can actually put it together this week and do better for not only fantasy managers, but for the NFL. We need to see these teams do well. We need to see these quarterbacks do well. This is what we live for. All right. So because my game of the week is the Bengals and the Ravens, I want to see these quarterbacks get cooking again. So to start getting cooking today, all you need is ground turkey or ground beef, brown it in a skillet over medium heat, a little olive oil. And then I want you to add taco seasoning. Now, if you don't have taco seasoning, just go get yourself garlic, paprika, cumin, salt, pepper, onion powder. Throw it in there, make your own taco seasoning. You're also going to need a Balaka cream cheese as well as frozen corn. That's it. How simple is that? A skillet, a couple ingredients, and we're going to rock and roll. So first and foremost, brown that turkey, add your frozen corn in there, and then we'll get going, okay? See how it's all brown? The corn's in there. We're going to add the cream cheese to it over medium heat. Let's talk about heat for a minute. Joe Burrow needs to bring the heat this week. He's now the highest paid NFL player. And did he bring the heat last week? No, he did not. Versus the Browns, his longest completion was 12 yards. 12 yards. That is not what fantasy managers pay for, nor is it what any of us expected. So this week, he is a start for me. I expect him to get cooking and get cooking early. I expect him to get out to Jamar Chase a lot, T. Higgins a lot. I expect him to use Mixon in the short pass game. So I'm definitely starting Joe Burrow. I'm definitely starting Chase. I'm definitely starting Higgins if I have it. I'm even starting Mixon because as we can see, the Ravens, they do have a good defense and they do have a good secondary, but Joe Burrow has to come out slinging or they're going to go 0-2. And, you know, I have this team picked to go pretty far, potentially even to the Super Bowl. And that's not going to happen if we start off slow. Is his calf injury still lingering? Or is he just shaky? Maybe all that money kind of gave him the, whoa, right? Rumors had it that he hasn't even talked to his parents yet or let his parents see him in person since last week's loss and since he got all the money. So is there something going on in that head up there? I don't know, Joe, but turn it around, buddy. Turn it around. We got a game to win. So as we're letting the cream cheese cook down, let's go ahead and think about some prop bets. I like Chase to go over 80 yards and get an anytime touchdown. I like Joe Burrow over 200 yards. Higgins is going to get involved, but I see him under probably 70 yards, maybe even 60 yards. And if you're streaming tight ends like those that don't have those top tight end options, then, you know, Irv Smith Jr. is not the worst. He actually was second in targets last week. So I see him having a role. But that's only if we're having a stream, right? And I think there's probably some better streaming options out there. I mean, heck, even Adam Troutman's a pretty decent one right now. So keep cooking it down. It is going to be weird at first because that cream cheese is hard, right? Obviously, set it out for a little bit if you can beforehand. But if you're in a pinch and you just woke up and you're trying to set your lineups, it'll cook down. Just might take it a couple more minutes. But all in all, this is only going to take about maybe 8 minutes or less to cook. Don't burn it, though. You don't want that burned cream cheese. All right, y'all. Once that cream cheese has fully melted, you're going to serve this dip hot. My hot takes on the Ravens are that Lamar is going to regain Lamar, right? Even though we've lost Dobbins, we're going to have Gus Edwards in the game. We're going to have Justice Hill in the game. But once again, he is going to find a way to make Zay Flowers shine again. Zay Flowers was one of my favorite rookies coming out. Now, granted, I like a lot of the rookies coming out. I really did. But I loved me some Zay Flowers. And him and Puka, I got all over the place. All over the place. So when you're serving up this dip, you can add cilantro. You can add hot sauce, little drizzle on the top. You can add sliced jalapenos because you want all that yummy flavor in there and all that mix in there. Speaking of mix, right? I think it's going to be Zay Flowers. And I hope that Mark Andrews is going to be back and they're going to be mixing it in there. And the new offensive coordinator there in Ravensville is going to really try to mix it up, spread it out. And he is going to give the Bengals a run for their money. This is still going to be the Bengals game, though. Bengals are still going to win probably 27-24. I believe the over-under right now is at 45 or 40. I think it's 45, maybe 45 and a half. I think that being on Zay Flowers and knowing that Zay Flowers had such a good game last week, that Odell will probably get open. Odell will probably have a decent game as well. But I'm still going to play Lamar, of course. I'm still going to play Zay, of course. For now, I'm going to stay away from the running backs until we know what is happening. This could be a running back by committee, but I do think that eventually it will be Gus Edwards taking over for Dobbins, who is unfortunately done for the season and I think going to be done for his NFL career, which stinks because I was kind of high on him coming back, and I was really hoping that he was going to prove himself as a running back after all of his injuries. But unfortunately, another injury. So here's where we're at. I'm starting Joe Burrow. I'm starting Lamar Jackson. They are going to prove to us why we drafted them so high, right? This quarterback cream cheese dip is going to go perfectly for you. Simple 4 ingredients. You get it on the oven in the skillet, get it hot, serve it. You could serve it healthy with some carrot sticks or celery sticks, even maybe a slice of cucumber. But in reality, guys, we are going to serve it up with some tortilla chips. Right? Y'all ready for this? Ready for this? Look at that beauty. Woo! Look, I garnished it with some tomatoes, some cilantro, jalapeno. Let's go ahead in. Let's go ahead and, oh, look at that. Look at that. Who's with me? It is so creamy. It's got a little spice in there. Y'all, this is going to be perfect for you watching all day, dominating your fantasy football. So join us right here on Fantasy and Frames for weekly content, weekly rankings, everything. Join me every Sunday for Tailgating in Frames, where we go over yummy recipes, drink recipes, quick and easy dishes so that you can get to Sunday football. Again, I am Courtney, Love Tractor 3 on Twitter. Go make some quarterback cream cheese dip and have a beautiful, wonderful Sunday. Who dat?
I love it. That cream cheese dip was good. The quarterback cream cheese dip, very, very good there. And Dynasty Deviant, our very own Chris, the jalapeno had a little bite, didn't it, Courtney? Courtney, I don't know if she's in the chat or not, but she can let us know how that jalapeno, because it looked like a fresh jalapeno. It looked like it was going to have a little kick to it. All right, let's get to these 4:00 games. The Giants Cardinals to start off. Over under of 39. All right, Kyle, let's I'm gonna give you the Cardinals. Do the Cardinals even have a chance in this game with that Giants D that looked like it was not good last week?
Yeah, I'll definitely give them a fighting chance. This should be a great one for the IDP crowd, I think, in this game. Vegas sees it as a low-scoring game. I see it as a low-scoring game. On the offensive side for Arizona, the only relevant player I see is James Conner. Maybe Hollywood Brown on the other side, but I'm expecting a low-scoring game. And for me, if I was to pick, I would choose the running back there in James Conner. And hopefully maybe they find the red zone and he punches one in.
Dave, you want to talk about the Giants?
Well, one thing I just want to mention quickly, and I know we don't talk about him too often, but Josh Dobbs, he's good at bringing the ball up the field, but terrible at red zone conversions. If you have a kicker or need a kicker, I like Matt Prater. I think he's good for a bunch. I think this would be a very heavy field goal game. So take the over on Matt Prater. But yeah, look, Giants, I mean, look, they had a terrible game, let's be honest. And you know, it's like when one team gets hot, the other one just gets absolutely dismantled. It's not a true showing of who they potentially are. But I think we see a different New York team this week. I think we see, Saquon carry the team. I think they're going to go the aerial attack as well. So we should see a very revamped New York Giants team.
Are you all in on Daniel Jones today?
I wouldn't necessarily say all in, but I think we're going to see a serviceable quarterback effort from him, and there'll be some decent performances. I don't know who really is going to lead the aerial attack rather than maybe Darren Waller, but Waller and Barkley, I love.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. So I'll actually send it over to Preston for this question here. Outside of Darren Waller, what piece of this receiving core are you firing up today, if any?
I know, and that Dallas Cowboys defense was in his face last week. Couldn't get to Hyatt like he wanted to. I see him kind of emerging a little bit as well.
All right, let's see what Nate. Go ahead and give us the IDP side of this game. Giants Cardinals. I know Kyle touched on it real briefly with the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
What are you looking at in this game?
Yeah, I think that, surprisingly, despite the blowout, the Giants defense last week, I can't say that they didn't get a fair crack at things because they had 58 snaps. I get it. They were on the field enough, and they didn't necessarily translate that into anything. But we did see some positives. We saw Dexter Lawrence at nose tackle actually have a very productive game. I expect that to translate into this week. I move him. He's that DL2 spot. I love the idea that without his, no Aziz Al-Jallari most likely this week. I haven't seen if he's completely out. Obviously, my late start to this morning, notwithstanding, we made it rough. But even through my fog and my haze, Kayvon,
Which one was that you didn't see yet?
I'm not seeing clearly is what I'm saying. I'm still trying to, gain clarity on these games and whatnot. But I can see clearly that Kayvon Thibodeau is a great matchup this week. I actually
saying the hangover's kicking in nice and proper right now.
No, what I'm saying is I haven't had fair prep time. My goal was to be up at 6:30 this morning, not to get home at 6:30 this morning, and so it is a little bit of lack of prep. That's not entirely true. I've done all this prep before, and so here's what I think about the game as a whole. I think the Giants actually destroy Arizona. I wouldn't be shocked if they just run up and down the field. Brian Daboll is so pissed off after last week's performance that I think they can put up 30 today. And I know that the answer, what Preston was saying as far as the receivers, not sure if I can trust any of them. I think one will maybe come through. Isaiah Hodgins is the easy answer for me as far as a person most likely to produce, but I don't think I want a piece of any of them. I want all of Saquon. And I think that that's going to be well. I just think that their team's going to, defensively, they're going to shut down Arizona. I'm not too worried, with Connor's health. I think they'll stack the box. Xavier McKinney will play more box snaps this week. He had 20 of them last week, so I think that's a good sign of where they want to be. The name I want to pay attention to and just see is how they use Isaiah Simmons. He wasn't involved too heavily last week. I mean, he had 15 total snaps and not able to do much with those. But it's an intriguing area. And then defensively for the Cardinals, they don't have much in the way of, fantasy stalwarts. Kazir White is more than serviceable. He had 10 tackles last week. He full complement of snaps again. Both Buda Baker and Jalen Thompson are defensive back options that I still like, probably more as a DB2 for Jalen Thompson. And then we want to see how Zaven Collins plays on the edge again. And that was one thing watching the game with Zaven. If you have a converted linebacker to edge rusher that's actually decent in coverage, well, they're going to drop him back into coverage. And I know it wasn't a ton, but he saw nearly 10 coverage snaps, which is enough to decrease some of that fantasy value. And I don't know if there's much other pieces besides those guys that is named.
Yeah. All right. Let's move over to the next 4:00 game at the 49ers at the Rams. And Dave, I'll let you start this off. I know you're out there on the West Coast. Which team do you want here? I'll let you have your choice of the Rams or the Niners, and then give me the fantasy relevant players, and let's go from there.
Look, it's going to be the Niners who win the game. The one thing I actually want to see, and just because I got him in a bunch of leagues, is less usage of Christian McCaffrey. I liked, I guess, that they trust him enough, but we've seen, what CMC does when he gets way too much of a workload. So I'd like to see Elijah Mitchell more, just purely for the longevity of CMC. But look, I was impressed with Brandon Ayuk. I think everyone was. Do I think that he's going to take over Deebo Samuel? Absolutely not. It's still Deebo Samuel as the number one there. I think Ayuk's going to be relevant, but I think maybe we see a 1A, 1B type of situation, like we had a few years ago with AB and Juju, right? So if those two guys can work in tandem, I think we're going to have a fantastic air show out there with the Niners. But look, Purdy looked great. I'd like to see more usage out of Kittle, but he also looked pretty good in a couple of fourth down situations. So as a whole, that offense is very impressive, and I think there's just no way the Rams, without Cooper Kupp, can compete.
Do you think for Ayuk, can he have a repeat performance against the Rams today that he had last week?
No, this is the NFL. It's all about studying game script, and what they're going to do is go, all right, why was Ayuk so open? How do we shut him down? So there's going to be a lot more focus on him. I think originally, last week, there was so much focus on Deebo Samuel that Ayuk was just left one-on-one with the second best cornerback, right? That's not going to happen this week. They're going to be smart about it.
So you don't feel that Ayuk can repeat? Is it going to be? And I know you said Deebo Samuels is going to be the guy this week, but with Kittle, he's more of a. I want to say he's more of a blocker, but he's a better blocker than most tight ends.
Yeah.
Can he get open in the middle?
Well, look at the end of last season. I think that really answers the question. I mean, Kittle had, I think, 7 touchdowns in the last 4 or 5 games. Purdy absolutely loves him. So I think we will see a little bit more usage out of Kittle, a little bit less of Ayuk. So I can't see Ayuk going for another 100-yard, 2-touchdown game. I think he's going to be serviceable. He'll probably get you 80 yards and 5 or 6 catches. Maybe he falls in the end zone. Who knows? But it's not going to be this crazy performance like we saw last week.
All right, Kyle. Go ahead, give us the Rams side of things. And I know you're going to be on this puka.
No, I guess my question on the Rams side is, who can you really, truly trust against this stout defense? It's tough. Is it Akers on a bounce back? Is it Kyron Williams, who looked really great last week? Puka looked great. But now they get their real test. Even Matthew Stafford, who threw for 340 last. I mean, this is a true test for this Rams offense. And honestly, I can't trust it. If I picked up Puka, I hope I have better options for this game, because I think it's going to be a long day for the Rams. Sorry, Drew.
Our very own Drew. He's probably hating life right now. All right, Preston, I want to give you another opportunity to jump in here and give us your take on the 49ers Rams game, over under of 45.
It's going to be ugly for the Rams. Puka, I think will still get his. I see because he's going to be peppered with targets. Once Matthew Stafford finds that guy, he feeds him. I agree with what y'all said about them dialing back Christian McCaffrey and giving Elijah Mitchell a little more touches. But it's going to be ugly for the Rams. They're going to destroy them. The 49ers are going to destroy the Rams.
Nate, let's get the IDP side of this game. That front seven for the 49ers is very, very good. I know you had a take on one of the linebackers earlier this week, and what your thoughts were with the 49ers linebacking core. What's the IDP side of this game look like?
Yeah, like you touched on, that defensive line is the heart and soul of the defense, and that's not fair. You know what? Fred Warner, Drake Greenlaw are both excellent linebackers, but having a healthy Nick Bosa, having Javon Hargrave, what we saw last week is that someone had to step up opposite Bosa, and that was Drake Jackson. I like Drake Jackson a lot. Rookie profile from last year was that he has that ability if on the field enough, and it took a little bit to translate, but we're starting to see that with increase of snaps. He's someone to pay attention to. I think he's a little volatile still right now at this point, but Nick Bosa is a must start. The person you're talking about as far as the quote unquote hot take or spicy take, a little spicier than that jalapeno earlier, is that Drake Greenlaw is an avoid or a fade for me this week, not on talent, but on the fact that he has a groin injury that had hampered him this week. And groin injuries for a team, like every person has said so far, the Rams are going to get just blown out of this game. I don't think the 49ers have a reason to tempt fate with Greenlaw. Let him kind of rest. That second half is the reason I would fade him. Is if you have another option. If you don't, you're going to start him and just hope for the best. But I said it before. I thought that a player like a Denzel Perryman, who got damn near 100% of the snaps last week, is a better play this week for me than Dre Greenlaw. And I think I'm hoping that's not necessarily true, because I want Dre Greenlaw to be on the field. I really, really like him as an IDP and an actual football, as an actual linebacker. Fred Warner, I think, is the biggest beneficiary of that. If that happens, Warner should see enough action that I don't know how the Rams move the ball. That's my concern. Is I think it could be just 3 and out. I mean, is Puka still questionable? Has it progressed? And again, like I said, I haven't seen much this morning, but he wasn't necessarily trending in the right direction. And outside of that, I sure as hell don't trust Akers or even really Kyron Williams in this particular matchup. Defensively for the Rams, man, again, you want to talk about, you would think they're going to be on the field a ton, and that should benefit one person. Is it Aaron Donald? Maybe. That offensive line is really solid for the 49ers. Ernest Jones is the one that I'm going to say is going to have a monster game. We saw last week, and what we've seen is ever since he started, that Ernest Jones has that capability to be that LB1 week in, week out. And I think this is no doubt he has the upside to be the LB1. In fact, let's see. I have him as my LB9 right now, ahead of Fred Warner. So optimistic for Ernest Jones. Not much else in the way of the Rams that I am excited about.
As far as your question for Puka, he is still listed as questionable, but he was trending towards playing. Jeremy in the chat's got a quick question for us. Puka, Sutton, or Moster? Dave, I'll let you start this one off. It is half PPR.
I just can't trust Puka today. I know he put up an amazing effort last week, but like you guys said, he's trending, towards playing possibly, meaning that he's going out there not 100% against one of the best defenses in the league. It's just really tough to trust him there. I actually would go Sutton. He's the number one there. I think Russell Wilson bounces back this week, and we see him get peppered with targets.
You bring up Sutton. Is it in Wilson bouncing back, but does he bounce back because of Judy being in the lineup, or is it you think he's going to pepper Sutton?
Judy has to command the respect of the DB. So I think you're going to see Sutton open up a lot more opportunities than than people are thinking. So he's going to get a lot of one-on-ones. I'm expecting a lot of deep balls to go to Sutton. He could pop off a 75-yard touchdown, no worries, and he's got the speed to do it too.
Kyle, Puka, Sutton, or Mostert in a half PPR for you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go Sutton as well. Jerry Jeudy, we got to see how his hamstring holds up. Sutton, like Dave said, probably the number one. I'm gonna take the number one receiver here, and Puka's just in a tough matchup. Mostert as well in a tough matchup. So I'm gonna trust Cortland Sutton. I know he didn't have a lot of yards last week. He did score. Maybe we get another one here.
Yeah. Drew in the chat saying neither one of the Rams looked good last week, even though they fell into the end zone. Stafford might throw 40 times a day. I mean, does he even have an opportunity to throw 40 times a day? Nate?
I mean, yeah, they'll be quick hitters. And here's the question for everybody. If you went and assuming that in the question in the chat is that you had to spend fab to get Puka, how hard is it to spend that much fab when, the scratch off, if you will, and not start him? I think many of the questions that are about Puka, I think at the end of the day, the person probably puts them in because you feel like you don't want to have seen your money go to waste. And I think the FOMO would be too much to not, like, I would start Puka only, which is stupid analysis, by the way. Don't let this guide you in the direction, is that I would feel worse if I sat Puka than if I sat Cortland Sutton and Cortland Sutton had a good game. And we know that it's ridiculous. It's stupid, but I think that will potentially, turn a lot of people's opinions towards Puka.
No, that's a fair point, because if you got Puka in the leagues that I'm in, he went for a lot of fab.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So
yeah, but just because you went to Costco and bought healthy fruits and vegetables doesn't mean you're not stopping at your Chick-fil-A on the way back, right? If you spend a lot of money, that's fine. I get it, but you've got to play the ball as it lies. You got to look at what's there today, and what today you have is a guy who may or may not play. I mean, are you really trusting that possibly as your wide receiver too? I don't know.
If you will buy a Ferrari, you're going to drive the speed limit.
Let's ask.
Even though it's the law. It's the law. You're supposed to drive the speed limit, but are you going to? And you know what? For anybody tuning in, listening to me comparing Puka to a Ferrari, that is not what I'm saying. Let's make that abundantly clear.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Drew was probably like, yeah, Puka's a Ferrari, baby.
Crispy in the chat. How are you feeling about Drake Jackson today, Nate?
I think that it's a good boom spot. Because that Rams offensive line's now weak. I won't say it's an outlier game from last week. I mean, it's definitely an outlier in that he's never done what he did, but anytime you're opposite Bosa, that's going to help out. And against a weak offensive line, I think that's always a plus. The question is just going to be utilization of the snaps he's given. I think that he will be a DL3 is I think where I would put him at right this week. Yeah, that's where I have him.
Chris, adding to your Puka Ferrari, he's a hero with a Ferrari kit.
Yes, exactly.
Dynasty Defense got a quick one for us. Pick 2 full PPR. Damian Pierce, Rashad White, Dalvin Cook, or Cam Akers. Kyle, let me send it to you first.
I'm going to bet on a bounce back for Rashad White and pick 2. Man, this is a good question. Damian Pierce, I guess, for volume purposes.
Preston?
Rashad White and Damian Pierce.
All right, Dave, give us yours real quick on this.
I hate to agree with the consensus, but it's Pierce and White. Like I said, I think there's going to be a bounce back from Rashad White this week. And Dalvin Cook, I mean, we just don't know. Look, I'm actually a Zach Wilson fan, so I hope he does well, but I just can't see a world where the Jets have the ball too much. So, it has to be those two. And Cam Akers, I mean, as we discussed, it's the Niners defense. We don't know what kind of running back or who's going to be the lead running back this week. So volume wise, it's Pierce and White.
I unfortunately have to agree with that. I'm sure, Nate, you agree with that?
I do. And Dave, I got my Zach Wilson shirt on for you today then.
Uh-oh.
Hey.
Oh, nice. Oh, look, I'm a Zach Wilson fan. I understand this is what, third year in the league, right? I think he had a big wake-up call this year where they went and got Aaron Rodgers, and Robert Salah just said, "Hey man, I don't trust you." So I think he's learned his lesson. You could see that he improved a lot in the preseason. I think we're going to see a different Zach Wilson this year. He has to. He's got no choice, because if he does a poor job, I mean, he knows no one's picking him up if he can't carry the weight. So they got the weapons there, man. I mean, I know we'll probably talk about it later, but Zach Wilson should be a much improved, Zach Wilson 2.0 from last year anyway.
Well, it's a perfect conversation. That leads into our next game with the Jets and Cowboys. But before we go there, I want to get to David right here. DK or Chris Godwin as a flex this week? Nate.
I'm tempted to lean towards DK. Or not tempted. I'm gonna lean towards Metcalf. The one thing that bothers me is not having either the offensive tackles in this game, and I want to make sure. I don't know if Geno's going to have the time, but I still trust a pressured Geno to get the ball into Metcalf's hands better than I trust Baker consistently feeding to Godwin.
Yeah, Charles Cross is the only tackle listed on the injury report, and he's out.
The other one was placed on IR already.
Okay. So there we go. All right. That answers that question there. All right. So David, it is Chris Godwin for me. I just think he is in the position where going up against that Bears defense, where DK is going up against the Lions, growing defense that is getting better with every play. Chris Godwin is that guy that, for the most part, for Baker Mayfield is a relief. And I just see him going off today. Dave, anything on this?
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm struggling with Geno, right? There was a song Gangnam Style a while ago. It was a one-hit wonder, right? And I think that's what we saw in Geno Smith last year. I think it was a one-hit wonder. I think we're going to see a regression in Geno. I can't trust him with DK. So Chris Godwin, I mean, he's a volume guy. He's going to get 7-8 targets. Much, much safer play in Chris Godwin.
All right, Kyle, you got anything to add to this, or are we moving on to the Jets Cowboys?
We can move on. Jets Cowboys.
Right. Jets at the Cowboys, over under of 38. And for those of you that are not in the Cowboys or Jets market, it is on Paramount Plus at $4.25 today. Let's start it off with the Jets. And I know you started this conversation a second ago, Dave, but let's start with the Jets and your love for Zach Milf Wilson.
Well, look, here's the thing, man. I mean, look at some historically, I guess, superior wide receivers like Calvin Johnson, right? Who was throwing him the ball? Matt Stafford, a very average quarterback, right? Garrett Wilson has that level of talent where he could truly be an overall number one. Zach Wilson just needs to be an above average quarterback. I still think Garrett Wilson is going to feast. Their running game is just impeccable. We saw what they had with Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook. That 1A, 1B, I mean, maybe we see what we saw a few years ago with Tevin Coleman and Devontae Freeman in their prime, right? Where that running attack just got them down the field, and then Zach Wilson just has to get it in the end zone with some of their receivers, And Lazard's not too bad as a number 2 receiver. Randall Cobb is still decent, even though he's getting older. But, they've got the potential weapons there. I think the Jets take it out again. But, it should be a good game. But I do like Zach Wilson. I mean, keep an eye out for him this week.
That's interesting. Preston, give us the Cowboys side, if you don't mind.
Am I good to go? Cowboys side, the defense showed up against the Pats.
We're still having issues with Preston's mic right there, so I'll give him a second, see if we can't get that fixed again. Kyle, Cowboys.
Yeah, for the Cowboys, the offense doesn't have it very easy either. You have Sauce Gardner on the opposite side of Lamb. You have DJ Reed last week who had 3 picks. We haven't seen a lot of Dak Prescott throwing the ball much, as they were just crushing the Giants all night long. So they just ran down the football. So it's it's tough because that Jets defense is for real. And we haven't seen much of Dak Prescott's offense yet. So it's going to be interesting to see how they approach this game with that stout defense in New York.
All right, time to shine here, Nate.
Mhm.
This is going to be over under is 38, so it's the lower scoring game. Is this going to be a defensive game? Is this where you want to get a bunch of your IDP players from a dominant Jets D last week? The Cowboys played the Giants and showed up. It was 16-0 before the Cowboys offense got on the field. Is this going to be a solid IDP game where you're going to grab a bunch of these players if you play all of them if you have them?
I think there's going to be a lot of key pieces that you want something to do with. Robert Saleh has already said that, no matter who the quarterback is, the three phases that you have to excel in, one of which is the running game. And I think that's what they're going to lean pretty heavily on. I think they're going to take the ball out of Zach Wilson's hands as much as possible against this team. I think they'll probably, again, I'm trying to play clairvoyant. I see plenty of screen plays, a lot of running attack, and short to intermediate work, which I think lines up really well for a linebacker that I'm not the biggest fan of is Leighton Vander Esch, but I think he should see plenty of work around the middle. I would love to see Damone Clark continue to get snaps somewhere in that 80 percentile. We saw him play a ton last week, but they noted that in the blowout. Do you keep him out to get some fresh snaps and get acclimated to the game? Time will tell, and we'll see there. J-Ron Curse is at safety, another one. Donovan Wilson is still out. Micah Parsons is a must start every single week. I think the biggest blow up and trap is going to be, Osa Digizua, who had a huge game last week. We're going to, the same thing can be said, like just across that defense, like most of that defensive line, everybody looked great. And outside of Parsons, I don't know how comfortable I am starting many more pieces. DeMarcus Lawrence is always an intriguing one, but he's more of a bottom end DL2 for me. On the Jets side of the ball, this is the intriguing one. From like DFS, I know a lot of people are taking the Jets defense as a whole as a cheap unit. Individually, though, it's hard not to want to take Quinnen Williams. The guy's just a beast. I don't know how much that defensive tackles you want to go with, but CJ Mosley to me is the easy answer of someone that's going to step in and give you that LB1 upside. Quincy Williams had a good week last week and could be another one to pay attention to. I think the biggest trap on the Jet side is going to be Jordan Whitehead, who the 3 interceptions against a turnover-prone Josh Allen does not lead to confidence. But then again, I could interchange the names Josh Allen with Dak Prescott when it comes to turnover prone, and very likely could see a Jordan Whitehead interception again. I just don't want to gamble on interception when he didn't do much else in the way of IDP production.
So I believe I saw where Brandon Cooks is out. So is Sauce going to be on CD all game?
I don't think so. I think CD runs enough out of the slot as well that it'll be, I think they'll just comfortably allow, I don't know who the best slot corner is for them. My apologies for not knowing that off the top of my head, but I think that it's Michael Carter II, most likely. Forgot the other Michael Carter, which isn't a good thing. But DJ Reed is known.
Are you firing up Gallup? I mean, with Cook out.
I mean, I think that the biggest beneficiary is probably going to be Jake Ferguson. Myself, if you're going to see, I think Gallup is a solid flex option if you have to do so. But I'm moving Ferguson up higher than in his respective rankings than I am moving Gallup up. I believe, at least my opinion.
And Dave, I'll ask you this: is Tony Pollard going to be a factor against the Jets D, even in the passing game?
I mean, if they get to a decent lead, I think they're just going to ground and pound. I don't think we're going to see as much out of the backfield. I liked what we saw in Deuce Vaughn. I think they're going to use him as a third down pass catching back. But yeah, look, he's good for probably 10 to 15 carries he's going to fall in the end zone. He's obviously your first round pick, so you're going to play him. There's no concern there with Pollard.
Anything you want to add to this conversation, Kyle, on the Jets Cowboys?
Yeah, actually, I have a quick question for Nate. Is it fair to assume that the Cowboys front seven should just tee off on this Jets O-line? Because last week, that O-line didn't look particularly great, and now you get the Dallas Cowboys. So is it fair to assume that we should see a lot of pressure heading towards Zach Wilson?
Yeah, and that kind of like earlier when I said I think the game script's going to be a lot of screens and short to intermediate work is for that exact reason, because there's not much. I mean, Elijah Vera Tucker is probably the most dominant offensive lineman for the Jets, and that's only going to go so far when you can't stop Parsons off the edge, and anytime they want to blitz any of the safeties, it could be a long day. I think that's going to go very much hand in hand with trying to decide between Breece Hall and Dalvin. Not sure who's going to come in. I think it's probably a 50-50 split, but we'll see both of them have a solid work out of the backfield to offset that, as you said, teeing off, which I think that we will see. Not to the effect that they did last week against the Giants, I don't believe, because that just, I don't know.
That was just insane.
It was the worst game I've ever watched. I mean, it was just, not entertaining.
I think we see those two running backs work in the slot more. I mean, Dalvin Cook runs incredible routes, and we've seen Breece Hall do it a few times, right? So, with those two guys, I mean, I wonder if they do a split set back and have them both working there as receivers as well. But that could be interesting just to see how they use those two backs now they're acclimated in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right, moving on to the last 4:00 game of the day, the Commanders at the Broncos. This is, as Dave said a little while ago, this is going to be the comeback game for Russell Wilson. Jerry Jeudy is going to go off for 150. Preston, tell us about these Broncos and why Dave is so wrong that Jerry Jeudy is just going to have a breakout game.
Because he's just coming back. That's the only reason. He's just coming back off the injury. I give him 50 something and a touchdown, but I think it's going to be spread out. I think Samaje Perine is going to see a lot of work catching the ball out that backfield, and it's only because of his injury he's coming back.
So if you're not starting Jeudy, are you starting anybody else outside of Sutton for the Broncos?
Samaje, that's about it.
Russell Wilson, you're not starting.
No, I'm not starting Russ yet, and I have him in a few leagues. I'm not. I in Dynasty I use him as my second QB, but I'm not ready to start him yet in one QB.
Let me ask this: if you're the Broncos and you lose this, or I should say, if you're Sean Payton, you lose this week. Are you having concerns about Russell Wilson? Are you trying to do something about shipping him?
No, not yet. Not yet. Russell Wilson needed a lot of work, but I think Russ and Sean Payton will be all right.
What about Mims?
I would see Mims in there for a few snaps. I like Mims. I like his talent.
But is he fantasy relevant?
Not yet.
Not yet. Dave, you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty poor offense, and we're now talking like what the third, fourth best receiving option. So I don't know. I'm not that ballsy, to be honest.
Yeah, and with no Jerry Jeudy last week, what did Mims see? He didn't see a ton of.
No.
Yeah.
No, he wasn't even a starter. He came in. I mean, hell, they had Lil Jordan Humphrey playing more in the slot than Marvin Mims was. But as time goes on, I mean, maybe it's a good buying opportunity. I mean, 2 catches for 9 yards and lack of involvement. Greg Dulcich going on the IR is interesting as far as
it sucks.
I don't want to believe or buy into Adam Troutman, but I know that if you have, as Courtney was saying on her show, it's, streaming options for tight ends are a wasteland, and Adam Troutman is the leader of wasteland tight ends, I would say, this week for waiver wire, and gross.
Yeah, but tight ends are always gross. Ken wants to know Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. Nate, I'll send it to you first.
I'm still always going to lean on Fields. I mean, just the pure rushing upside enough is for me to offset what I think could be a tough game against Tampa linebackers. But I think that as a whole, it's just too much by the legs alone.
Do you agree with that there, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's crazy that we're having this conversation. Fields definitely disappointed last week, but you're probably going with him. I'm really concerned about Fields owners because you probably took him pretty high, right? Probably in the mid rounds. Not crazy high. We're not talking like Justin Herbert or Josh Allen high, but I don't know, man. He did not perform at all for where you picked him in the draft. So you're going with him this week, but I'm keeping a very close eye out for Fields. If I get a decent offer as a trade for Justin Fields, I'm shipping him.
Kyle, let me ask you this. What do you have to see from Russell Wilson this week in order to feel comfortable next week starting him?
Well, I don't think Russell Wilson looked particularly bad last week. He was pretty efficient. In fantasy-wise, I think for me, on my bench, he scored like 17 fantasy points. So I'm still optimistic on Russell Wilson. I think we need to be patient there in Denver. Everybody's still learning the Sean Payton offense for the most part. Javonte Williams is still going to be eased a bit, so he probably still won't see a heavy workload. Judy's still recovering from his hamstring. It might be another tough day for the offense for the Denver Broncos, but I think the key here is just to be patient as we move forward. And I think this offense will eventually open up a little bit. But I think Russell Wilson in week 1 looked better than he did last year.
27 to 34 last week, 2 touchdowns.
What's wrong with that?
I guess I guess there's really nothing wrong with that. I guess it's just all in feel, right? What we saw last year, and just kind of wanted to see more with Sean Payton and his new offense coming in. And of course no Judy as well, but it just felt gross. And you look at the numbers. If you just box score it, okay, it's decent, right? But when you watch it on the field, it's just hard.
Yeah, I feel like you didn't spend that early of a draft pick on Russell Wilson, so he's not really he shouldn't be holding you down too much. And I think the key is it's week 1, now it's week 2. Let's be a little patient here, and let's see what happens going forward.
All right, Nate, give me the IDP stuff, the info that everybody needs to have for this Commanders-Broncos game.
Yeah, so realistically, as far as like the Washington front, Montez Sweat had a great game last week. I would think that I moved down a little bit. I still like Montez Sweat a lot. The interior line Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, can come and go. I like the matchup in the middle for Jonathan Allen between Ben Powers and Lloyd Cushenberry. Those two have been just sieves on the offensive line. And over on the right-hand side, Mike McGlinchey, I'm sorry, that's a liability as well. And that's where I see Montez Sweat. I'm not, Chase Young is out of the equation, so not even bring his name up. But at linebacker,
Is
Cody
Chase
Barton
playing today?
No, I don't think so.
He's not.
No,
I heard Chase Young was going to play today.
Oh, is he? That shows how much I pay attention to Chase Young. So I forgive all the Chase Young fans out there that tell me I don't know what I'm talking about and I should pay more attention. But I wouldn't start him. I wouldn't get tempted by that. I'm not sold on anything Chase Young has done in the last year and a half now, maybe longer it feels. But Cody Barton last week we saw was pretty much what we kind of were going to expect. Let down as far as an actual linebacker goes, not much in the way of like true upside. And I mean, he had 100% of the snaps, which is what you want, but it turned that into like 4 tackles had only one stop on the defense. It was actually more surprising that Jamin Davis did so much with his limited snaps. That is something to potentially pay attention to, but not really. Outside of Cameron Curl, there was not too many like singular bright spots to focus on in this game for Washington. On the flip side, though, Denver, I'm not going to say has a ton of IDP options per se, but they have some intriguing ones, especially in the linebacking core. And Josie Jewell and Alex Singleton. Singleton is just he's an efficiency monster every week. If you go in and you're just looking at like actual snaps and thinking, all right, I need to correlate tackles with the actual snaps that they play, Singleton has been an outlier for forever. But I mean, hell, he puts up those 20 tackle weeks on 60% of the snaps. So Josie Jewell's the linebacker that I want, kind of a do it all. But we saw, like I said, with Singleton, he had 53 snaps out of 59. So if that's going to hold true, he's the one that I want to roster going forward. On the line, I don't know what to think of this defensive line. Frank Clark's banged up, but he's out. Randy Gregory's never healthy. They just don't have much in the way of IDP options, personally.
So if you're playing with IDP or playing in an IDP league, you're pretty much just like, there's only a few players in this game, staying away from it as a whole.
Yeah, I really am. I mean, the linebackers I'm fine with for Denver, but outside of that, there's not much, man.
Well, that's the 4:00 games. Anybody got anything to add with these 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock games that we didn't touch on yet? Dave, anything?
We're good.
We're good there. Kyle, you good? Preston, you good? Let's get over to the Sunday night game. And I'm going to let Preston lead this one off because this involves his team. And I know the Dynasty Deviant is in the chat, and he's a Dolphins fan. So, Preston, take your take. Get your Patriots fanism on, and let Dynasty Deviant know why his Dolphins are not going to win this game.
Well, we split every year. He knows that. We split every year. And normally we take the home game. But I really like how Mac Jones looks with a real staff. I said that last year. I said it during the offseason. Give Mac a staff, not a defensive coordinator calling offensive plays. And he's gonna light it up. He did that against the Eagles defense last week, and he's gonna do it against the Dolphins this week. And that defensive front for the Dolphins is not the Eagles. And it's and we've had history of locking down Tyreek Hill, even when he played in Kansas City. He'll get his little bit on us, but we've shown that we can lock down Tyreek Hill. Bill Belichick's got something for him.
Is Kendrick Bourne starting in your lineup this week?
No, that was a mirage.
Okay,
that was a mirage.
Is there a wide receiver that you would be starting from the Patriots?
Not a wide receiver.
So it's
tight ends. The tight ends are going to get off. So and I love Gesicki here.
Okay, all tight ends and Ramondre for you.
And Ramondre. Mm-hmm.
Dave, anything on the Patriots?
Yeah, I'm a Patriots fan as well, and I don't want to. I'm dreading tonight. Kind of like going into an exam. We're going to get torn apart. I think Mac got lucky last week. It's the first time we've seen him throw for over 300 yards in God knows how many games, especially 3 touchdowns as well. So I'm personally, Preston, I'm not a Mac fan. I think we should cut Mac and get a decent pocket quarterback. But I think we're going to see the Patriots unfortunately get decimated. But yeah, it sucks. That Dolphins team just looked way too good. I mean, if they can put in a performance like that against the Chargers, who I have to win the Super Bowl, I hate to see what they're going to do to us tonight, but it'll be brutal. But
is this Dave's hinting to Bill Belichick, hey, we need to trade Mac Jones and get Zach Wilson. Is that what that was?
I would prefer, I legit would prefer Zach Wilson, not even remotely.
Oh, no.
So many quarterbacks I prefer over Mac Jones. I mean, in all honesty, I thought Bailey Zappi was going to win the starting job. So, which is what I'd like to see. I liked what I saw out of Zappi last year. The couple of chances he had, I don't think he had a fair shot. But yeah, Mac is the source of all problems in that Patriots offense. I'd like to see him out. But sorry, dude.
Okay, I can't do nothing but respect it.
I so wish Chris was on. He could give us the Dolphins side of things. Huge Dolphins fan there. But Kyle, since he's not here, I'm going to throw the Dolphins to you.
Okay, great. Tyreek Hill was a freak last week. If you stacked him with Tua, then good for you. You most likely won your game last week. The thing that worries me with Tyreek Hill, and Nate can probably attest to this, is he'll have a game like he did last week and then come back, say today, and go 4 for 40 yards with no touchdowns. His ceiling is literally through the roof. But you have those games where he doesn't even show up. And playing against the Patriots in a divisional game like it is, what is Bill Belichick's MO? Take your best player.
Best player away.
And they're going to try to contain Tyreek Hill. I'm not saying they're going to, but that is going to be their game plan, and I'm sure Nate will get to it here in a second. But don't be surprised if Jalen Waddle today outshines Tyreek Hill. Maybe it's a Jalen Waddle game, not a Tyreek Hill game.
For some reason, the Dolphins have our number. I mean, I think the last time we beat the Dolphins was 2020 with Cam Newton, to my knowledge. I mean, unless did we beat them at all last year or the year before? I don't think so. But the Dolphins, man, for some reason, it's they just know how to pick the Patriots apart.
Yeah, Dynasty DB in the chat. Mac Jones, 54 passing attempts last week. Bill is probably still mad about that. Is there any reason to look at Zeke this week at all?
If you're sorry, go.
I think you can look at Zeke. I think you can look at Zeke every week. I mean, he's gonna get his. He's gonna get 10, 15, I think, out of that backfield, just to because he's still a decent back. He can still shoulder some kind of touches from Ramondre. So I could see that every week.
I think if you're in a standard league, Zeke's a decent play when you're relying on him falling in the end zone. He is one of the best backs in the league in the 5-yard area, just bulldozing his way to fall in.
But you have to get to that point, right?
True.
All right, Nate, let's go with the IDP side here. Dolphins, Patriots.
Yeah, the number one player that I want to talk about is Jalen Phillips. I think he's a blossoming superstar off the edge. I think New England they always have a makeshift serviceable offensive line. And I know that's probably actually sounds like a knock, and it's not. It's just we know that they're going to be well prepared for this matchup. Christian Wilkins is a force in the interior, but if they actually run the ball as much as I think that they will, I think that builds towards a good Christian Wilkins game. If Bill O'Brien lets Mac Jones throw that many times again, then I probably would lean against Christian Wilkins. I just think that it's going to be a Ramondre game personally, until they can't. That's the key. If they slow down Tua, whoever pieces that's going to be, if that's going to be Tyreek, if it's going to be Waddle, if they can slow it down, they can stay on the ground. That's one thing. I don't know if I believe they can slow that down. They might have to throw the ball more. And then Jerome Baker is just there. I don't know why. I'm not the biggest Jerome Baker fan as a whole. He had a good week last week, as did Javon Holland. And then I'd say, the slot corner, Kader Kohu is like one of those, if you have to start a cornerback, and this is for deeper leagues that have a cornerback position eligible, he's a slot corner there. He was the most targeted person last week against the Chargers. I think that's a spot that they would try to, I say exploit, but I don't see Mac forcing the ball downfield. When we said earlier, we don't know which receiver to even trust. It's not exactly getting any better. As far as the other side, like I said, Jalen Phillips being the one there for New England, they have Matthew Judon. Matthew Judon's the guy there, and I can't say enough. Jorge, if he was on here, he would just interrupt me and start talking about Judon. And rightfully so. He's converted my opinion of him quite a bit in watching him, and I think that he's still an underrated edge rusher that's gaining in value. And I hate to say that's about it. I mean, Kyle Duggar is a solid safety that has shown flashes at times to be that DB1, but it comes and goes. I'd love to see Marte Mapu get some snaps and continue to play on that defense, but I don't think that's going to happen yet.
Would you entertain Juwan Bentley?
Yeah.
I like Bentley. And Gonzalez. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, no. That's exactly right. Christian Gonzalez could be
can't forget about him.
No, I hate to target outside corners. It's just volatility week in, week out. You're reliant upon a big play to happen. But I will say, I think that if they're going to try to attack a side, I don't know if they should attack Christian Gonzalez, but he's the most likely target for the Dolphins.
Listen, the chat's got Khalil Herbert or Zach Moss today. Go ahead, Kyle.
Oh, I'm going to go Khalil Herbert on this one. Got to see Zach Moss first. He's coming back from that injury. This is his first game back. I'm going to go with Khalil Herbert and just keep rolling with Herbert.
Khalil Herbert, only because we haven't seen Zach. I'm still not I still think Roshan is going to take that backfield, but for this week, Khalil Herbert.
Dave?
Yeah, the known commodity is Khalil Herbert. You're relying on at least 10 or 15 touches there. We don't know what we've got in Zach Moss. We don't know what the game script's going to look like. Don't know if Anthony Richardson is going to steal a lot of those goal line carries, but there's just way too much risk with Zach Moss.
Nate.
Mm-hmm. Man, I hate Zach Moss. I never want to even start him. I do. I hate that my hatred.
As a person, or
I don't know him personally. I know that if I did meet him, I probably wouldn't like him. If his personality is like his play on the field, I'm out. But I want to believe in Khalil Herbert one more time. I just worry more. Like, I worry more about Roshan getting involved than I worry about anybody on Indy taking, snaps away from him.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time with this one because my Bucs fandom is going to show right here. I think that Bucs defense is way better and not going to allow the Bears to get that running game going. The Zach Moss one is interesting because as big of a Anthony Richardson fan as I am, going up against Houston, as we've stated multiple times already, this is going to, later in the game is going to be more of a rushing game. And I don't think they're going to want Anthony Richardson to rush the ball as much as he did last week to get hurt. I think that's where Zach Moss is going to be a very viable, asset. I don't know if I don't think I could have him starting, as one of my RBs, but maybe in a flex spot would be my only argument there. But again, I agree with you guys. The injury is a concern coming back from that injury, and Khalil Herbert is a known commodity. Good morning, Miss Stacy Perez in the house.
Good morning. Better late than never, right?
That's right.
Yeah, that's the truth.
All right, we are on to the Monday night game. Monday night games. There's two of them this week. Saints at the Panthers, over under of 39. Since you want to come in late, Miss Perez.
Yes, sir.
Out there partying down in Miami last night. Let's start with you. Let's go. On the Saints side of the ball, what fantasy relevant or what players are fantasy relevant this week against the Panthers?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Chris Olave, definitely you're going to have him in your lineups. No question about that there. One thing that I'm kind of struggling with my lineups is, do I start Jamal Williams this week? Right? He didn't have such a great, showing last week. I think that had a lot to do with the Tennessee line there. But, if you're looking for, a flex spot, maybe you waited on running back, are you starting Jamal Williams? So that's something that I'm looking at right now, just in personally for me in my lineup. So I really logged on just to get all of your opinions on that.
Well, we talked about Juwan Johnson a little bit earlier, but on my list here, it's still showing as he's questionable. But is Kendre Miller? Have we heard anything on Kendre Miller, Kyle?
I haven't, but to answer Stacy's question, we all know here at Fantasy and Frames that I am high on Jamal Williams. I'm eating crow right now because of week 1, but I will say that was a very good run defense there in week 1 for the Titans. They were top 5 last year, and I'm sticking to Jamal Williams. I'm going to die on that hill. He's going to get the volume. I'm sticking to my process, volume. And now he gets the Carolina Panthers, who gave up a lot of yards to Bijan and Tyler Algier. So this is the game for me right here. Jamal Williams, you are on the line. If you put up dud numbers again, then I'm done with you. But I'm giving him one more chance as an RB2 this week.
I'm saying that's fake. That's all a lie. Dave, anything on the Saints?
How are we feeling about Michael Thomas? I've got a conundrum now. I've got DeAndre Hopkins, and I don't know if I'm trusting Hopkins even if he is in the lineup. And I'm thinking about in the flex going with Michael Thomas. He had a couple of end zone shots that, if he catches it, maybe we're now having a different conversation this week. But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious what everyone's thoughts are there.
Yeah, he was targeted a lot last week. I mean, I was watching that game, and Derek Carr was looking his way. I think he had like 10 targets.
It was, yeah.
He was really looking his way.
Nate,
I like the Michael.
Go ahead, Preston. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I like the Michael Thomas take. Michael Thomas might eat a little bit this weekend. As far as Jamal goes, if Kendre Miller is healthy, because I've been looking for Kendre news this week as well. It's very vague. I'm not sure if he's going to play or not. But
yeah,
I would love to see Kendre Miller on the field against this defense.
Chris just updating us that Kendre Miller is out according to his sources.
Fire up Jamal Williams.
Fire up Jamal Williams.
Back to
fire him up
real quick. 5 of 8 last week, 61 yards. And I know when you look at it, again, box score scouting here. Shaheed is blow up game last week. With the big 40-yard plus receiving yard reception. Can you trust him to do it again? I mean, is it fair to put him in your lineup on a weekly basis, Kyle?
Shaheed?
Yeah.
Nah. Yeah, no. I don't have anything else to say, but I do not feel comfortable starting him each and every week.
Dave likes starting these guys, I think. So I'm going to ask Dave. Let's get Dave's opinion on Raheem Shaheed right here.
No, I mean, I hate to agree with the consensus, but it's just not. There's no way in hell I've got confidence enough to start him, knowing that I'm going to get some sort of points. It's just too high risk. Maybe he pops off a big 75-yard touchdown. Who knows? But that's just blind luck.
All right, Kyle, take over on the Panthers side of the ball. Is there anybody outside of? Oh man, can you even? I don't know if you can even start Adam Thielen. Is there anybody that you're starting on the Panthers side of the ball?
No, I'm not starting any wide receiver for Carolina. I said this last week. I'm going to say it again. Nobody in Carolina do I like outside of maybe Miles Sanders as an RB2, but I don't even like that. Vegas sees a low-scoring game. So do I. I just haven't seen enough from the Panthers. I am clear from the Carolina Panthers offense.
That's a good question. But going forward, is there any Panther you want a part of fantasy-wise?
No, I mean...
No, same with me. To your point, I mean, even Miles Sanders, I don't have the confidence there.
Stacy loves the Panthers.
I do. I love the Panthers. Not really. Here's my question, though. If with tight end being such a mess, what about Hayden Hurst at tight end?
That's a good point.
Yes, it's a streaming option. Good point.
That seems to me, I picked him up in several places. That seems to me to be the one. If maybe you had Dulcich and now he's out, or you're just really weak at that position in general. I'm throwing Hurst in there to see what he does this week, to see if he ends up being, Bryce Young's safety blanket. Maybe he's the only person on that team who ends up being fantasy relevant. But that would be my pick. If you have to put one in, I'm putting Hayden Hurst in.
Gun to your head, are you going with Kincaid or Hurst at tight end?
Oh, if I have to pick between those two, probably Kincaid. It might just depend on the matchup. Honestly, I looked at those numbers last week because I've been a big, Laporta, Kincaid fantasy, like who's going to do better, Musgrave too. And they all ended up with pretty similar numbers. They were being used. They weren't, anything to write home about. But I was pretty pleased with how they were, being, integrated into those offenses. But, Hayden Hurst is a veteran back there. Like I said, I think he might be kind of that safety blanket for our rookie quarterback in Carolina. So I do kind of tend to like him a little bit. I think it would just depend on the matchup for me. But man, if you're lucky enough to have both those guys on your team, you're probably doing pretty well at tight end.
Aaron Jones, Christian Watson are both inactive for the day. Nate, anything IDP wise with the Saints Panthers?
Yeah, there's some options for sure. Starting on the Saints side, last week we saw Carl Granderson have a really big game. I think that comes back to earth. Ike Ekwonu is actually a really ascending left tackle. Cameron Jordan's probably going to have, if there's pressures to be had, I expect it to be him coming from off that left edge, attacking the right side. That linebacking crew, I like Pete Werner. I like Demario Davis. I like Demario Davis a lot this week. Again with this, Carolina team, I don't see a lot of stretching the field. I see the middle of the field and short to intermediate work should, escalate that or inflate that floor for both of those linebackers, especially Demario Davis. I'm not a huge fan of, from an IDP standpoint, of Tyrann Mathieu or Marcus May in the secondary. Now on the Carolina side, that's where we get some intriguing pieces really on the defensive line. Brian Burns is a must. He's always going to start. I was watching that game again, and they ran so many wide 9 formations. And if you're not familiar with what a wide 9 formation is, imagine you take the center of the defensive line and just stretch it out far left and far right. So Brian Burns is lined up almost where you would see like a slot corner. It's not to that extreme, but he's out there. And Derek Brown was matching up against Chris Lindstrom. Is it Chris Lindstrom? The offensive guard for the Falcons, who I believe is the highest paid guard in football right now, and ragdoll them on a couple plays. Derek Brown is a beast. Derek Brown is a force to be reckoned with, and playing next to Brian Burns, I think that this could be the matchup is intriguing because you have Cesar Ruiz there, and I think Ryan Ramczyk is I don't know if he's out, but the talk was that he was trending in that direction. If that's the case, that Brian Burns and Derek Brown side of the line is going to just destroy New Orleans, which for me takes Jamal Williams out of the equation. I don't want any piece of him. If Ramczyk is out, I don't think that he has room to start to running. And I know volume's key, but let me trick you on that. I think that it's going to be a long day for Carr, and that takes away my Rashid Shaheed love too, who I do want to start some weeks. I don't know which week that's going to be, but he was, he ran 25 routes, which isn't the most, but he had one less target than Michael Thomas last week. His yard per route run is 3.56, second to only Chris Olave. His ability to stretch the field is incredible. The opportunity to see enough snaps consistently is the scary part. I would say that's where I'm going to put him in like a DFS lineup occasionally here and there. I don't know if it's against Carolina this week with the pressure, but it could be something like that. And then as Chris said in the chat, he loves some Frankie Louvu. I do too. I love the player. I didn't know going in. They have a new defensive coordinator. Had me concerned as far as what his usage would be. But I'm seeing him play more inside than on the edge, like I thought he was going to do. That was the concern, is they were going to move him to play like edge rusher, and they haven't. So I am high on Frankie Louvu as well. Shaq Thompson is just, kind of just a guy. And then Jeremy Chin is has always been one of my favorites, but his usage has been weird, I guess. And we'll see this week. That's what I want to watch. is how he's utilized this weekend along that defensive secondary.
Get to a couple of these questions real quick before we get to the last game on Sunday night. Chris B, over under on Christian Gonzalez, a half a sack. Love seeing him involved in the blitz last week. Nate?
Chris, he had one pass rush snap and he got a sack on it. So the odds are under. Let me ask you this. If you had a wide receiver that had ran one route and scored a touchdown, would you take the over under on touchdowns for that same player? No, you would not, Chris. So it's the under. Watch him get 2 sacks now. I'm not to eat crow for that shit.
You can eat crow, and Chris is gonna blast you with it.
Oh yeah, I hope he does.
Mike Williams, Najee Harris, Josh Kelly, full PPR. Dave.
Ooh, this is an interesting one. I don't like Najee. I think we're going to start to see Jalen Warren work in a bit more. Gun to my head, I'm going with Mike Williams. I think it's going to be an aerial attack. And we're going to see a lot of Williams out there. But if I had to pick with between all those ones.
Stacey?
Yeah. So, I think I'm going to go Mike Williams. Don't love Najee against that Cleveland defense. So I think I would go Mike Williams, Josh Kelly, Najee in that order. I do like Josh Kelly if you're able to grab him this week. If you don't have Austin Eckler, throw him in your lineups if you need that, extra running back there. But I think probably in that PPR, I'm going to go Mike Williams first.
All right, Kyle. PPR Lee, how do you feel about Roschon Johnson today between him and Kyren Williams to fill Aaron Jones's spot?
So he has Aaron Jones. He needs Kyren Williams or Roschon Johnson. I seen what Kyren Williams can do. I'm gonna gamble on Kyren Williams. It's such a tough matchup though, but I think Khalil Herbert's going to get more snaps, a lot more snaps than Roschon Johnson. So because of volume, because of snap share, I'm going to go Kyren Williams. Tough matchup.
Let me ask, in deep leagues, would you entertain Isaiah Spiller?
In a deep league, so 16 and up? Nah, no, I can't. Well, yeah, because I would. 16 teams and up. I could probably find a flex spot for him.
Nate, thoughts on Roschon Johnson or Kyren Williams?
Well, I'm going to lean Kyren. I don't love it, but at the same time, the Cam Akers touches last week were in garbage time, which makes me think that maybe they are going to lean on Kyren. My biggest thing right there with Roschon, and as Deontay Foreman is inactive, a lot of the value that I saw from the Bears running back room last week was the heavy targets that they saw. I don't know if they go DJ Moore, if he doesn't have, 12 targets today, 11, 10, anything more than, 1 or 2, I think that there will be some questions needing answering. Why trade what you need, to get them and then don't utilize them whatsoever. So I think that I'm going to lean Kyren because I would want to trust Roschon in the passing game more than in the, between the 20s running game. So, and he's a St. Louis boy. Kyren is. So I'm going to go. If you needed a scale to tip, that's what it is.
Chris has been debating between Chin, Poyer, and Hobbs, and he thinks you made the decision real easy for him. So good job, Bill. Tyler in the chat got PPR start 2, Gibbs, Kelly, Rashad White, Jamal Williams. Stacey.
Yeah, definitely Gibbs. I'm definitely starting Gibbs everywhere. I didn't love what I saw out of Rashad White. Josh Kelly, that's hard. With Miller being out and Kamara still being suspended, I think I'm going to go Jamal Williams as the second on that one. That probably has to do with how much I love him anyway. But just out of that group, Gibbs and Swag Daddy, I think are my 2 that I'm gonna throw in there.
Preston, welcome back. Gibbs, Kelly, Rashad White, Jamal Williams, pick 2.
I'm going to go with Rashad White because of the volume, and Jamal Williams. I think he's going to have a bounce back. Now that we know what's his name is not playing.
Miller's out. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dave, you got something to add to this?
Yeah, it's Gibbs and Kelly, just a volume-based play, to be honest. I didn't like what I saw at Jamal Williams last week, and I don't know what kind of Saints team we have with Derek Carr at the helm. So, I like the potential volume of those 2. And, Gibbs, I want to see him play a bit more. I mean, we've heard the narrative Last week he just didn't get enough touches, averaging I think 5.8 yards a carry. So I think we'll see more involvement from his side.
Anything to add to that, Nate?
No, I think you guys nailed everything.
All right, I want to get to this last game because I think this is going to be some of the IDP plays that would need to be happening. And with it being the last game of the week, Browns at the Steelers. Nate, when you're talking about your IDP players here, can you give me some of the players that you would start knowing that it's the last game of the week?
Yeah, no, that's fair. Always start Myles Garrett. Obviously at the IDP, it's about depth of your league, but Zadarius Smith is a must start. So Pittsburgh last week. Here's one little stat. That offensive line, I know it's supposed to be coming together, and they built and they got it, and it's progressing. It is not. Now, I don't know if that's a product of their offensive line, but of the 13 pass rushers that had at least like 5 pass rush snaps against them, 8 of them had a win rate, which is a metric that determines their ability to beat their blocker within a certain time frame. 8 of the 13 had a win rate above 20%. 20% is kind of that level that's like not elite, but really, really good. And so I think that Cleveland has that same opportunity this week to just decimate that offensive line. And those 2 options from Cleveland might be 2 of the only options I want to start. Linebacking room doesn't have too many players that's like JOK is great as far as like what you saw on tape come out of college and whatnot, but it just hasn't translated to the NFL. He's not even seeing 100% of snaps. He's closer to 80 last week. So it's a revolving door. Grant Delpit, I do like as a player. I think he could be up there, especially if they lean on Najee pretty heavy this week with no Deontay and just to kind of move the chains. For the Steelers, same thing. That defensive line, I'm definitely starting TJ Watt. I do like Alex Highsmith more this week than I did last week. Not a ton, but I do like him more. And then the weird thing we saw last week is that Cole Holcomb, who I expected to be just the every down backer, very solid. Quan Alexander stepped in and started playing some snaps. So I might avoid the linebacking room for Pittsburgh. And then Minkah Fitzpatrick is a must start every week. And unfortunately, with no Cameron Hayward for the interior for Pittsburgh, that opens up quite a bit, like especially for for Nick Chubb. I've seen some props where like 102, I think is his over for yardage, and that's like an easy smash play.
So I want to go around the frames real quick. We only got a few minutes left here before we got to go get our lineup set. So go around the frames. I'll start with Kyle. First, give me somebody, this is the last game of the week. Offensively, Brown Steelers, give me one player from the Steelers that is, definitely starting.
Definitely starting. Well, you have to start Najee Harris because you drafted him early. But George Pickens is an interesting spot with Deontay Johnson out. He's looked pretty good, but can you trust him as a number one? He'll have the target share. So maybe you could throw him in as a flex play, but if I had to pick one, I'm going to go the safer route. I'm going to take Najee Harris.
Stacy, the wide receiving core from the Browns outside of Amari Cooper, is there another one that you are definitely starting?
Well, so here's the question, right? Is Amari Cooper going to play? And I don't think that we know the answer to that yet, which is a real problem because you definitely drafted him in a spot where you are starting him every single week. So, I mean, I hate Monday night injuries going in on Sunday and having to make that decision. I have pulled him out of my lineups because it doesn't seem like he's going to have a big role, even if he's in there with that re-aggravated groin. That kind of scares me a little bit. So if you are in, let's say, deeper rosters here, how about Donovan Peoples-Jones, throwing him in there if Cooper's out? You've got him. He's all reliable, kind of, So I wasn't really super impressed with Elijah Moore. David Njoku, not so much. I think this is going to be a real low-scoring game, so maybe not a lot of points through the air. This might be more of a running kind of thing. So Nick Chubb might be your guy. But if we're talking about receivers, though, I'm taking a gamble on DPJ if I'm a Cooper owner.
Preston, if we're sitting here again, last game of the week, are we playing Watson?
I saw one of your articles, and between Mac and Watson, I'm going Mac. But if this is it, I'm playing Watson. But as far as the wide receivers go, don't sleep on Allen Robinson this week.
Yep.
Do not sleep on Allen Robinson in the slot this week. So I think I'm firing up Allen Robinson.
Yeah, he got a lot of run last week. 5 of 8 for 64. I mean, they had somewhat iffy offense passing game. Dave, go ahead, take over here. Give you a few minutes on this. Browns Steelers over under 38. Being the last game of the week, what players are you keeping in your lineup?
One guy I want to keep an eye on is Pat Freiermuth. So he scored last week, and I think he got 5 targets. I mean, we talk about it every week, but yeah, tight end is such a tough position to fill. And we saw what the barren land of tight end was last week with no Mark Andrews and Kelsey, right? It was just such a crapshoot. But Freiermuth might be a decent option if he gets peppered today. If he's a red zone threat, then might be someone to look to pick up.
Nate, anything to add to any of this?
No, I think you guys. I'm glad someone else got some Allen Robinson love in there. It's a spicy one to jump on, and I've been, unfortunately, that's probably one of my most rostered players across the board, which might not say a lot about me. So think twice before listening to anything I have to say.
Well, you're an IDP guy. That's why you're number 1 in IDP rankings per Fantasy Pros ECR. That's first of all. But you also play in a lot of dynasty leagues too, so you have him out there as well. And if you didn't notice, Nate, stretch your shirt out one more time. Show your fandom for the day. Who are you repping the day?
This would be Zach Wilson, throwing bombs and banging moms.
And that's a great way to do this for today.
Always
That's awesome.
Let's go around the frame to start with Preston. Preston, tell the people where they can find you and what you are working on with Fantasy and Frames.
All right. I'm new to the crew. I just started doing my content. You can catch me on Twitter and X at PJ2082. And you can find all my content there.
Awesome. Yeah, we are glad to have you. The short you put out was phenomenal as well. Make sure you go check that out. One last housekeeping thing, guys, and I forgot to do this earlier, but please, if you like what we did today, like what we do every Sunday, don't forget to hit that like, hit that subscribe for us. Get in the comments is awesome. Let us know what your questions. Let us know what we can fix, what we're doing wrong besides me hosting. Everything else is we can fix. All right, Dave, let them know where they can find you.
I'm at Connect Go NFL on Twitter, but you can download the Connect Go app, and I think we got a couple of the analysts on there. You can book a one-on-one with them, or just text with them and get some lineup advice.
Awesome. Stacy, the host of 365, Dynasty 365.
Yes. So I am on Twitter. I refuse to say X. I hate it when that little logo pops up. It just feels weird. I like little bluebird better, but I am at Stacy_Perez83. You can find me at the Dynasty 365 show on Wednesday nights, 8:00, where we are checking out our rookies, seeing how they're doing in their first year in the NFL.
Kyle.
You can catch me on Twitter at KZ1180. Also look out for my videos on Monday night for the Monday Night Football FanDuel Showdown lineups. From week to week, every Monday night, I'll throw you a lineup, what I'm playing. We had a terrible one last week with Aaron Rodgers going down and 4 passing plays. We'll try to rebound here next week. Also, just a quick note, in case you're confused with rankings, not sure what to do, who to start. If you're debating who to start, head over to fantasyandframes.com. We've got you all covered with our rankings. The safer option is to always just start the higher ranked player. So head over to fantasyandframes.com, look at our rankings. I disagree with that gut thing. Follow the rankings. It's probably your best advice. fantasyandframes.com.
Where you will find Nate Markham's very own IDP rankings, number 1 IDP ranker again.
Yes.
Nate, tell them what you got going on.
Well, unfortunately, all my rankings are gut calls, so that might be contradictory to what Kyle said. No, that's
well,
not
then
entirely
maybe
true.
there's something to it because you're number one.
Hey, you get lucky every now and then, right? I'll take
Yeah.
it. But yeah, so over at Twitter, at Nate Markham, obviously, I would rather you follow everybody else here on the screen and follow their work because it's exceptional, and so. That's what I do. I listen to everybody around me, and iron sharpens iron. And so, but like Kyle said, definitely check out the rankings. I think the rankings have been extremely solid. Everybody's putting it. You can tell the time's getting put in. And well, heck, we got
There's Nate.
hour till game time.
Yep. That's the alert that, hey, go set your lineups, Nate. Go set your 12, 1500.
That wasn't me. I don't know.
Well, that wasn't
Oh,
you.
I thought it was.
No,
that was me. That was actually for real an alert to set my lineups.
Yeah, like Preston or like Kyle and Nate both said, go check out the fantasyandframes.com. You have the rankings, all of the videos go up on there. Any of the content that we put out, start sits, waiver wire pickups, all of that kind of good stuff. Also, like Nate said, follow everybody on the screen. Also follow at Fantasy and Frames over there on Twitter. We are going to refuse to call it X until we get the big man himself, Des Bryant, to grace the airways on Fantasy and Frames. Then we will change it to X. But until then, it is Twitter. You can find me over there at FantasyJ77. But like I said, more importantly, follow the show or follow the group over there at fantasyandframes.com. Last but not least, just remember fantasy football is a game of strategy, skill, and luck. May your roster shine bright, your instincts be on point, and your predictions reign supreme. Until next week, we are out.